word.
Oh, yeah.
Brexit. It was
Brexit.
great.
But it's nothing more than that, you know. So I'm doing I'm in the process of applying to British citizenship now. So I have to do the life in the UK test, and I have to literally absorb 150 pages on facts about the UK, which is interesting because it's about history, it's about culture, it's about institutions. So it's interesting, and it's very expensive. I think it's £1,500, I think now.
Wow.
I will ask my synagogue to pay for it. It's really to be safe in the UK, like I'm doing it.
Yeah, we need the money. To become Swiss.
Yeah.
Is it cheaper?
Yeah, I just paid 600 francs.
Huh?
But you had to wait 12 years, no?
No, I did this clever way. I married a Swiss national.
Oh.
And therefore the test was also very rudimentary.
Okay.
When you are a real foreigner, then you have a test with 100 questions and interviews without an end. And I had a visit from the local police on a Shabbos afternoon. And they asked me 6 questions. And on one of them, they didn't know the answer themselves. And that was it.
Okay.
Was it just to mention 5 Swiss cheeses?
Well, that question they forgot, actually.
Hello, Albert. How are you?
It's easier in France.
How are you, Albert?
Probably.
Hey. Is it
I can advise you, René, to watch the Netflix series The Crown.
I've watched it, yes. Yeah.
Okay. You get a lot of information and history, and I think it's great, actually.
I mean,
not necessarily positive for the Crown, but okay.
Discussed.
2 weeks ago, I wrote my column about it in any way.
Oh,
okay.
Read it.
The mail says that there's a password. I'm supposed to whisper the password now, so that I'm allowed to be in this. I didn't need it to enter Zoom. So
it's embedded in the link, so it's fine. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure why people are having problems, because on the letter it just says click here, you click here and you're in.
Yeah, but it says there's a password, so probably the password isn't activated.
Because there are 2 passwords. There is a number and there is a word. And when you enter the number, it doesn't work.
That's
so you
right.
have to enter.
Yeah, but why don't you put click here? Doesn't that work for you?
That worked for me.
We always disobey when you're Reform Jew. You never click where you're supposed to click, you know.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you do. That's
Can I have a link, Jesse, please?
The link for the YouTube?
For YouTube, yes, so I can post it.
Yes, let me put it right here in the chat. Hold on.
So yeah, if you want to tweet, to post it on your Facebook pages, please do it. We're trying to reach out. Okay, gosh. How can I? Okay, can you send me an email, because
yes, I can send it as an email.
Yeah. Oh no, it's fine actually. I can open it and do it.
Okay.
You must laugh when you work with rabbis, huh, Jesse?
No,
click.
No. It's quite all right.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Hi, Alexander.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Alexandra. It's a matter of looking at the screens. How many people have got more books in the background? It's a competition.
Yeah, but his is a fake one. Yes.
This is just an automatic background, you know.
Yeah.
I don't read. Yeah, it's the recognizable kind of background for rabbis and vicars and people like that. A bookshelf.
Yeah. Hi, Daniela. Welcome.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hoi Marjan.
Hi Marjan, hi Daniela.
Hi. Je bent gemute.
Hello. There is a funny feedback tone that I hear. Do other people hear that too?
Yeah, hear it too. Not anymore now. Yes.
No, no, there it is. Sounds like a shortwave radio single.
Yeah, I hear it
Signal.
too. I would just recommend when you're not speaking to keep your microphone on mute.
Yeah. Gabrielle?
We do that
Bonjour,
anyway,
Gabrielle.
but this was different.
Hi Gabriel, Walt, Amnon, Thomas, welcome.
Thank you. Shavua tov.
Shavua tov.
Shavua tov.
Is Jesse van Gogh?
Yeah.
Me? No, I'm Jesse Goldberg.
Oh, it looks your picture looks like Van Gogh.
Oh yes, yeah, that is Van Gogh. That's I don't know. When you're doing so many meetings, it's nice to have some art to see.
Yeah.
I thought it was pronounced Van Gogh.
I know your Dutch is very bad, Walter.
Thought you know better. Van Gogh, isn't it?
Everybody's busy drinking. I've already drunk my tea. That's fine. As of next week, it's forbidden in Berlin to sit in a room with yourself. It's a new lockdown rule, which is really hard for us schizophrenics. We really don't know what to do.
So what are you going to do, Walter?
What I've been doing for the last few weeks, sit at my computer and write and write and write. I'm doing
But you have to take the mirror away, then it's only one of you.
As long as you don't call the police on yourself.
Yeah. Tamara's there. Hello, Tamara. I think the one person I've never yet said hello to personally is Hara. So hello, Hara. The other colleagues in Europe I know, but you're obviously in Trump land still for another week or so.
Oh, this is not Trump land. I'm in New York, not Trump land. But hello. Nice to see you all.
Hi, Tamara, Fabian, Adrian, David. Nice to see you all.
People coming. David, it's nice to see you. You haven't got a suit on. You must be relaxed.
Oh, I've left my handy.
Hi, friends. Hi, Andrew. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Tamara.
Nice to see you. Long time no see. It would be difficult, but I suppose at some stage we might introduce ourselves, but that would take too long because there's so many people here. It's really a great credit that I think you said there were 60 people registered. That's incredible.
60?
60.
Yes, that's correct.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So much.
Okay.
In this way.
Joel, lovely.
Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Joel. Nice to see you.
Hi, Kathleen.
Good to see you. Hi. How many are on?
Michael.
Good night, colleagues. I can't see, is Sergio here tonight? Not yet. And Nathan?
No Nathan, no Sergio, René.
Yes, Sergio is here.
Hang on.
Hi.
Yes.
He's here.
Pretzel.
He's just coming.
Yeah. Hello, Sergio.
Hi. He is under the name René Pferzel.
Yeah, the voice.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening. Okay, good. It happened to Hara as well, so I don't know what's happening.
Because you send them your link, and the link embeds the identity. Hi,
You're right.
Kathleen,
Yeah.
Stephen.
So
Hi,
identity
Joel. Hi,
theft.
Michael. Nice to see you.
Okay, so we're going to wait a few minutes just to make sure that all our colleagues can join the Kallah.
I see that Nathan is also listed. Oh, no, he's got his own name. Yeah, right.
Too slow, Walter. Nice to see you.
Ah, Nathan. Hello. Hello. So, welcome to you all. We're going to start now because we want to have enough time to discuss, and the people can. We'll have some moments during the Kallah where we will just leave the link open so you can chat with each other, and we can. It's also part of the Kallah. It's not always to think very seriously about all the things that we're facing in our lives. It's also to chat and to catch up with each other, and I think that's the Kallah gathering. It's exactly what it's about today. Just before I leave it to Andrew to officially open our Kallah tonight, or depending where you are, it's today, tonight, or this morning.
Tomorrow.
Or tomorrow. Just a few housekeeping issues or questions or matters. First, when you're not talking, can you please mute yourself so we don't have a lot of sounds going around the room? So that's the first thing. The second is, if you have a Twitter account, please, by all means, tweet what's happening here. We have put it on the EUPJ Facebook page, on the ERA Facebook page. I will post it on the ERA Twitter account. I spent a lot of hours to try to understand how this works, but I managed to do it. So we can be seen outside our room. And if you want to tweet on what's been said, of course, we need to keep things, there are some things that we want to keep for ourselves. But if you want to tweet on some ideas that some people have actually expressed today, please, by all means, do it. So people will see within the UPG and beyond that there is a thriving and a very active rabbinic body in Europe. So thank you so much for you guys to come here tonight, and over to you, Andrew.
Okay, I hope people can hear me okay. And first of all, I have to say it's an honor to be invited to open this Kallah, and for Francois to close it. It's two alter kachas bookending the event, though I suppose we're still in sort of active service. But I suppose you'll forgive me if I reminisce, and along the way ponder on what has made EUPJ, the European Progressive Judaism, successful. But I think it's also a comment on what motivates enthusiasm for Judaism if it's not blind faith in God. And I wonder for how many faith, duty, or mitzvot keep them Jewish. The first years of my time at the Leerbeck College from 1965 to 1970, and coming from a young person in Birmingham, where my rabbi was Bernard Hooker, who's English through and through, I suddenly met and was taught by rabbis who were refugees from Europe. A whole new world opened up to me. And the rabbis who did so much to connect us to other rabbis post-Shoah, people who are no longer with us, like Lionel Blue, Albert Friedlander, Harry Jacobi, but those who are still around, Dov Marmor, Avram Sutendorp, or David Lilienthal. Those who are so much part of European progressive rabbinate circles when I was starting out, and it was a complete new world for me. There were post-Shoah individuals, mostly second generation, who took up the challenge of recreating a non-Orthodox Jewish life on the continent of Europe. And soon Sharon and I found ourselves in 1966 organizing a WUPJIS, I don't know if you remember that, the World Union for Progressive Jewish Youth section, a conference in Holland at a place called Vogelenzang. It was my first trip outside of the UK, and it was so exciting. I recall sugar strands on bread for breakfast. It was my first introduction to strange continental customs. And I noted now that the whole weekend cost £8 per person traveling from London. But then the Six-Day War, which for a decade or more brought people back to Judaism. Maybe you didn't find the services exciting, but you could get a new passion for Judaism through interest and pride in Israel. Attend a fundraising dinner instead of shul, though shul attendances did rise. And you could teach your children about Israel's military successes, more understandable than studying Joshua's battles, Moshe Dayan, rather than Moshe Rabbeinu. The most successful Shabbat game we ever devised at our Kadima summer school was a recreation of the Six-Day War. The kids really thought they were in tanks, not in cardboard boxes. And then the rabbis and students passionately got involved in Soviet Jewry, and of course the lay people too. And the fact alongside Israel, that campaign gave many in the West a reason for remaining Jewish. For some, Zionism and fundraising became their Jewish religion, maybe still is. For others, Soviet Jewry gave a substance to their Judaism when belief and the synagogue had ceased to excite them. To be honest, adventures I had in communist Czechoslovakia in search of my Torah scroll's origin pepped up my rabbinate for over 40 years, as well as any little mitzvahs I did over there. It led me to exciting travels and legitimate weekends away from the growing drudgery of another service, another sermon, another bar mitzvah in my own congregation. I believe all rabbis need an escape to keep them fresh and interesting. And it was this interest that led me to the European region, as it was called, and in time to become its chairman, now called a chair, of course. And with the fall of the Berlin Wall, EUPJ, as it had become, had new challenges and new sources of excitement, adventures still to be explored. The World Union, or rather the Israeli movement, kept us out of the FSU, but still we had opportunities to explore in Central Europe, in Poland, the Czech Republic, Hungary, and each one of them is an ongoing project. And last week's establishment of the Central European Beit Din is a sure sign of progress in developing progressive Judaism in those countries. Strangely, two other countries opened up at the same time, Spain and Italy. Italy showing signs of growth with, again, two retired rabbis making it their mission to develop it. Spain is still a challenge. And here, like in other countries that I've mentioned, there is the need to learn, which we didn't have in the early days. That a rabbi growing up in the relative safety of London, unaffected by the Shoah in his or in the family, working in a long-established congregation, that rabbi can't swan off to onto the continent and hope to recreate a British liberal or reform synagogue without understanding the history of the people living through the traumas of the last century. And the need to understand the local culture, lessons beyond sugar strands on white bread. And I'm not sure we have still come to terms with the inner damage the years of communist repression and rule have done to individuals and communities. Germany had been a long-standing project with the heroes like Lionel Blue and Albert Friedlander and Harry Jacobi and Jonathan Magenay having the courage to go back there soon after 1945. And yes, the actual German rabbis, Ernst Stein, Willy Wolf, Henry Brandt, and the expansion possible after the fall of the wall and the welcoming in of the former Soviet Jews. And then along came Walter Hamulka, and a new drama was opened, and we still wonder where it will lead. Progressive Judaism started in Germany. Will its future lie there? Strange to contemplate. Looking back, I see the successive influences that gave a boost to progressive Jewish life and to rabbinic activity. Post-Shoah renewal, Israel's very survival, Soviet Jewry. But what will keep us excited about spreading the word and the influence of progressive Judaism in the future? Could we ever be like Chabad Shlichim, devoting our lives to it in the most unlikely of places? I doubt it. It could be the fight against anti-Semitism that brings us together. But is this enough? The new focus, of course, is on Tikkun Olam. This inspires our youth and so many rabbis. It's so worthy and so essential to the Jewish religion. But I wonder, did prophetic Judaism help Judaism survive in many historic challenges? Or was it religious practice and belief and study? And now, in and after COVID times, everyone, of course, is doing their own form of Tikkun Olam locally. But I believe that online services and study have shown their power to give comfort and meaning in confusing and frightening times. And I've never known a Kallah like this, with so many people from all over, including out of Europe, joining us for this day and a half. And finally, Ki mi London Teitzei EUPJ. Will the focus change, particularly after Brexit? Now, will the power come from Brussels, or is it time for Amsterdam or Paris to take on the leadership? I hope this Kallah and the energy of ERA will help rabbis inspire the growth of progressive Judaism across the continent. And being a rabbi, having said finally, I will have another final thought. My reading over the past locked-in months has reinforced the thought that liberal or Reform Judaism are not post-war inventions, incursions into countries pictured as only Orthodox. Progressive Judaism ideas were widespread, well established in many countries, Bohemia, Poland, Hungary, France, even Denmark, from the beginning of the concept in Germany at the beginning of the 19th century. We're not some modern upstart. The reasons for our foundation are as relevant and urgently needed as way back then, of intellectual honesty, inclusivity towards those who want to be Jewish, equality for those from various Jewish identities, yes, and the pursuit of social justice and peace in Israel and throughout the world. And ERA, may it be a force for good in supporting the expansion of progressive Judaism across Europe, and may it be a focus of support for hardworking and often undervalued rabbis wherever we toil. And a blessing or an invocation, you can do no better than those ancient words, Chazak, Chazak v'nit chazek. Let us gain strength from each other and move on with our mission to spread progressive Judaism around Europe and the world.
Yeah, Sherko, thank you so much, Andrew, for these words of wisdom to open our Kallah. Rabbi François Garay can't be with us tomorrow, so he has a dentist appointment, so he won't be able to conclude the Kallah, but we'll talk about this tomorrow. Thank you so much for these words and to remind us where we come from and what our purpose is. And I think that's very important, especially when we come together, this sacred time of separation from a kadosh time, separated from the mundane work of a rabbi, to this place where we can actually think about who we are. Thank you, Andrew. So it is my pleasure to invite now for our first workshop. So let me just open my. So we are very, very fortunate and very happy and very privileged to have with us tonight Rabbi Sergio Bergman, the president of the World Union for Progressive Judaism. We have also with us, and we're very happy to have you with us, Rabbi Howard Person, the chief executive of the CCAR, and also very happy to have you with us, Rabbi Nathan Alfred, who is the World Union Head of International Development and Community Building. So I wanted to open with a few words. I've attended a session in Limwood, UK in December, and there was also a session dedicated to these questions of the future of Jewish community. And just a few thoughts, and I will open with a few questions. So the idea for this Kallah, especially now, I mean, it's what we do usually anyway. We will listen to our presenters, and then you will be able to ask questions, and we will talk. It's an open conversation. So it's obvious now to all of us that COVID has transformed entirely the way we live in our communities and the way we reach out to our members. But changes have started before that. And one of the things that the people in this on this call at Limwood said that the numbers are dwindling. We are losing members. And for example, in the part of London where I live, out of the 3,000 Jews who live in the area, only 25% are members of a Jewish community. So, you know, what's happening there? We have also seen the change in loyalties in a way, in synagogue membership. People are maybe less loyal to one simple movement, and they're probably more going to one place or the other. So there's a change in the Jewish world. I don't think the Jewish community will disappear, because it is exactly the core and the essence of what being Jewish is. But I wanted to ask you a few questions, 3 questions for you. I will just say these questions first, and then you can answer as you wish. So my questions for you are, what changes have you noticed recently in the Jewish communities, in the nature of Jewish communities? And we have someone from South America with a worldwide experience, and we have someone from North America was also a very large experience, and we have someone from Europe, Israel, Singapore was also a very large experience. So you can actually cover a lot of things happening in the Jewish world today. So COVID has, of course, had a large impact on our communities. What do you think we should keep out of this period of COVID, when this, Bezrat Hashem, this is over, when the vaccine actually works? And do we have reasons to be optimistic, and what are these reasons to be optimistic? May I ask maybe Hara, maybe, do you want to start, Hara?
Okay, happy to start. Choose the person who doesn't know the most people here on the call. Hi, everyone. It's really nice to be with you. And I'm just so sorry I can't actually be with you in person and meet those of you who I don't already know. So I'll talk a little bit about what we're seeing over here. And, you know, needless to say, you know, North America is a huge place, and we have many, many different kinds of communities. So we're not seeing one thing, we're seeing a lot of different things, and it's impacting on different communities in different ways. What we are seeing as a kind of overall trend is mergers. And what I think is happening is a lot of the sort of weaknesses or fissures that were sort of under the surface, this has just, you know, sort of made change happen much faster, but the change was already happening. So we're seeing mergers, for example, of that have to do with changing demographics. And also, there was a period of tremendous growth at one time in the United States, right? Let's say in the 60s, I'm sort of overgeneralizing, but you know, that was a time where we saw this huge spread in suburban Jewish life. And there were communities across the country where multiple synagogues were springing up in very close quarters. That's just not sustainable today. And we all knew that was coming anyway, but this moment has kind of, you know, pushed that change to happen, so that we're seeing mergers in some of those communities where they just can't sustain 2, 3, 4, 5 synagogues within a very small area in suburban and even in sort of more, I'm not going to say rural, but even more sort of outside of the urban environment. And that also includes things like, areas where there were breakoffs, where a small group went and found, went from one synagogue and founded another synagogue. Again, some of that in today's climate is just unsustainable. So that's one of the things we're seeing, but at the same time, we're still actually seeing growth in other places. So urban areas are seeing growth, and that's been a trend for a while. We're seeing a kind of interesting thing, and I'm curious to know if you're seeing that where all of you are as well. But we're seeing people accessing synagogues now in a way that they weren't able to before. So it's almost like, the menu has expanded so greatly, and people who live in one city are now going to things in another city because they can do it online. We're seeing, and that's like across state lines. Across, the country. It's an interesting thing. And some people are very, very concerned about that, because we have some synagogues that can do like huge production value services, and others who just don't have those resources and are kind of feeling stressed because other synagogues can. But I think one of the things we're also seeing is the quality of engagement, and that people they don't just want the big splashy beautiful service, they actually want real engagement. And so in some cases the engagement is going to be, with the smaller synagogue or with their local synagogue where where there's a sort of history and there's the possibility for ongoing engagement. We're seeing, what we're talking a lot about, and I assume you are too, is what's going to happen in the sort of after, right? Like we all know we're not going back to what was in March a year ago. So what are we moving towards? And I think one of the things that everyone is struggling with is the question of hybrid services, or hybrid model in general. And how, even when we're back in our buildings and we're back in person, how do we continue to engage people who can't come and who previously felt disengaged, whether it's, let's say maybe it's people with disabilities, maybe it's older people who don't want to drive at night. Maybe it's parents with young children who just, can't get to the building in person. How do we create a hybrid model that is workable given our resources, and that really does engage this kind of fuller community of people, because people are looking for that kind of engagement. I'll just say two other quick things. And one is that we are seeing an increased interest from young people, which is really interesting. And I'm hearing my colleagues talk about this across the board, that there's a tremendous amount of outreach from young people, in particular LGBTQ people who want to learn, who want to study. In some cases, conversion, in some cases, Jewish, but wanting to deepen, feeling a need for synagogue involvement and Jewish content in their lives now. And that's been a kind of increased interest that we can really mark. And the last thing I'll say is one of the conversations is that a lot of the debates that we were having before about how do we do certain things from a distance, or how do we not do them because it's not appropriate? For example, Introduction to Judaism or religious school, that conversation in some ways has sort of gone out the window at this point. So that gets back to that hybrid model. Like we now know that we can do these things from a distance. So how do we develop that in a new and creative way going forward? I'll stop there.
Thank you, Hara. You said a lot of very interesting things. Can I leave it now to Sergio to continue, please?
Shabbat Tov to everyone. Thank you for this huge opportunity. Really, I'm glad. I'm happy to share this Kallah with all of you that are leading our communities in Europe, and especially with teachers, rabbis, and friends that I know across years, now across countries. And if I need to answer your first question, Rene, about the changes, I think that this is one of the components in our Jewish identity. That means the way that we face changes. One of the critical points in our identity, and especially with our roots in the history, the Jewish history in Europe, it's that we try to change our mind to build up a positive identity, moving from be survivors to become resilient people. And I think that the key word that we learn from this experience with COVID is resilience. Resilience, it's one of the components that make Jewish people stronger. Not only because we never give up, also because we learn through our values and our institutions and the way that we really include historical and dramatic situations to take in our identity the good things for the bad ones. Here we need to make really a balance. It's not a good time for humankind and not for the Jewish people. We are part of this global town that is the small big world. Never in the past we was really connected in so immediately and permanent way. Everything that's happening in every part of the world, we are updated. And I think that this is not the first time that we have disease, we have problems, we have challenge, but I think never in the human history we was on the same page in the same time with the same challenge. For us, the COVID crisis bring up something like really Hara said. I think that is not new thing. It's an acceleration, a catalysis of process that was under the line. Now they blow up and they show up. Now it's evident that we are living in a global era, that the technology offers us an opportunity, but can replace the intimacy and the spirituality and the energy that really likes our Jewish heart and our Jewish identity when we are together. That means that Zoom calls, streaming performance are really good for our time, but can replace the personal contact and the warmth of the community. Now, what we learn, that the future will be really an hybrid system. I think that this kind of thing comes when we keep it in the future, because we saw here opportunities. But it's not to replace the community building process of the intimacy and the contact with our people. I think also that we need to make a clear distinction how we use technology to build close, warm, and really warm relationship with the people. I think that here we have a challenge. It's not to move from community building to a Jewish Netflix performance. We can encourage our people to use to zapping from place to place like you are a spectator and you are not a builder. We need to use the technology not to really to succeed to have attendance. This is a new way to have our overlapping and competition. Like Hara said, what is really the way that we can build community identity? The people belong to us? No, we belong to them. Here we need to make the right question. How relevant are the community and the services and our presence, our leadership to be meaningful to Jewish life and to general life of our people? The answer is not if we have a big number of people attending our performance streaming that we succeed. Maybe we are in the line of alienation. In the other hand, it's clear for us, and I want to really to address to our value proposition in the World Union, that the COVID crisis come, and for us is a big opportunity to ask every region, every community, every rabbi, what is the way that we can help you to build relevant, local, significant relationship with your people in each community? We don't more believe that we are an umbrella, that we can represent all the reform movement around the world. We prefer to use this crisis to say, you know what? The two main issues that the World Union can share with you, that we are global and that we build connections, through this technology, we have a lot of opportunity to be present with you every time, in every place, but to fulfill your needs, to support you, to empower you, to collaborate, to build bridges and dialogue. How this global family, this extended worldwide global family and network, support the only place that we are building Jewish realities and reform, progressive, liberal approaches, that is in the work that day by day each rabbi, each community in every place are doing. We don't build Judaism around the world. We build Judaism around the town, around the houses, around the families. And our strength is to connect, to give the feeling that you are in one place with your particularity, with your richness, but you belong to something wider and bigger that give you the strength not to be alone there facing the challenges. And this is not new, it's not technology, it's not streaming, it's not Zoom, it's not COVID. This is our collective memory. One of the wondering things, the miracles of the Jewish identity around the times is how we succeed to build together the collective memory, telling the same stories, sharing the same values, and to feel that we are one family around the world. We need to consolate and to support the sick people, the people that die, the families that lost their loved ones, a lot of people that pass away. But also, on the other hand, we need to be proactive, creative, and to keep our hope, because with hope, never give up. And this is one of the more important lessons, that lo abda tikvateinu. Our hope still is there, and we're building together the future of the Jewish people.
Thank you, Sergio. So if I reflect on what Hara and you said, there's a few words that actually really struck me. Well, you mentioned resilience, and I think it's quite it's a Jewish value, resilience, actually, and it was I think designed by Jewish psychologists after the Shoah. They started to think about how do you survive that. I like also what Hara said about the mergers and the changing faces of communities, and also the hybrid system, style of community that we're all facing now, and the challenges of competition between communities who have a lot of means and support and money, and communities who are not as good on a virtual world. And also what Sergio said about how do we use it, because there is a there's almost a theology of technology now, maybe to be written to think about it. Now I'm handing over to Nathan. So Nathan, is it a new position? I don't remember. So you, the World Union Head of Community Development and okay, Nathan, where are you? I can't see you.
I'm here. Thanks, Rene.
Okay, thank you. Please.
Thank you, and thank you very much for including me in this panel. It's an honor to speak to my colleagues, many of whom I know from my time in Europe, and greetings to those of you who I haven't met yet. I think to echo what both Hara and Sergio said, that this crisis has accelerated changes that were happening already, and to preface my words by saying that in general we've been living in a time historically of great changes, and specifically technologically. And the first point I wanted to make was that, you know, what is changing the world for us now is that acceleration in video technology, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about. In the same way that we discovered the internet 20 years ago or something like this, and it changed the world. Now the capacity in technology for video streaming, for having a meeting like this, is something that's come on in leaps and bounds, and is now possible in a way that wasn't before. And I think that's the big realization that's occurred for the world in Corona, is that video technology does make things possible that we didn't have before. Now, of course, a few of our communities in Europe were streaming for several years already, but only a few, and it seemed kind of slightly wacky. People were ahead of the rest of us. But now, of course, pretty much everyone is streaming. And of course, it's for better or for worse. I give it the example of when I was living in Luxembourg. I used to go to the cinema to watch the opera. Luxembourg doesn't have its own opera house, and so they used to stream opera live from Paris, from Covent Garden in London, and we used to sit in the cinema in Luxembourg and watch that performance. Now, on the one hand, that's great. It meant that opera was available in Luxembourg and live too. But on the other hand, it meant that we weren't attending the actual opera house, even though we didn't have one locally. And I think that's a good model. Maybe that's enough for some people, for twice-a-year Jews perhaps, to turn on their TV and to watch Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah online. And maybe that's a problem for some of our financial models, that we could lose those twice-a-year Jews to Central Synagogue in New York, which appeared over the high holidays, I don't know, 50 times on my Facebook feeds. Everyone seemed to be watching Rabbi Buchdal and Cantor Mutlu and the Central Synagogue in New York. But it's the change in video technology that's really making this happen. I think that's the first change I want to focus on. The second change is the kind of platform model of Judaism. And many of you know that I'm a chess player, and I compare this change to the online chess club. When I was a teenager, I used to have to go to my local chess club and play the local players and learn from the local coaches, and that was the limit. And each player was limited by what was in their locality. Then 20 years ago, with the rise of the internet, suddenly there were online global platforms for chess players. You can play someone 24/7, any minute of the day. You can log on and play, rather than have to wait for a wet Wednesday night when your local chess club opened again. And I use this as a model, not just for chess, but I think also for Jewish learning as well. You know, in times past, we're limited to the rabbi, to the local rabbi, the local library, to the local teachers and possibilities. But education, online education, is changing at a rapid pace at the moment, and online Jewish education will surely be changing rapidly as well. I would separate between the community, which I'm a great believer in local communities and going to shul and kiddush and being part of a local minyan. I think that's one thing. I think that will get back to normal in due time after the vaccine. But for education, I think the genie is out of the bottle, and that, you know, suddenly people are connecting to different teachers around the world. Different institutions are offering global online programs. It's not inconceivable to imagine that a student takes 2 programs at once. You can study medicine at Oxford whilst studying a full degree in Talmud at Bar Ilan. That geography is no limit. You know, it's not just Hermione Granger, if you excuse the Harry Potter reference, that can start to be in 2 places at once. And I should say that Chabad have been doing this for years. Their children sit all day in Vietnam or Abidjan and learn online. They don't have local Jewish children to study with. They study with other Chabad kids from around the world. And I think that it's on us now to set up the educational opportunities for globally or regionally or nationally. And we don't need to stay with the local structures that we have. If you have bright teenagers who've done their bar mitzvah, and want to study more, it can often be dependent on the generosity of the local rabbi's time or capacities to teach them further. But the fact now that they can log on and connect with a cohort of similarly aged, similarly minded students around the world, I mean, that's a phenomenal opportunity for us. And really the sky is the limit in terms of the education we can offer. And I think the third point I'd like to talk about is about the need for reactive leadership in rabbis. I can imagine that many of you are quite fatigued after the year that's passed, whether or not you've been suffered from Corona directly, or had more funerals or had more to do. I think, you know, we have resilience, as Sergio said, but we have to acknowledge, as I think Rene was intimating, the trauma that we've been through as well. And it's a big pressure now on the rabbis to change, react to the models, to the new model. I think that for me that we're increasingly going towards a model that is polyarchic, the rule of the many for the many, that we have a leadership model where you know, everyone starts to become a leader in the community. Again, this is not something necessarily new. It's something that was happening already. And for rabbis to find their place when they're no longer maybe the sole teacher for their community members, where the community members are able to shop around, able to learn things on the net with other real teachers now. Again, it's happening before with the internet, but kind of more and more. I think it's really a question how we define rabbinic leadership and what the role of the rabbi will be in this kind of new world. On the one hand, and I just take one more point which is about globalism, about geography, about globalism and localism. It relates to the rabbis. On the one hand, the changes favor the big shuls with all their resources. I know in Australia, for example, they've been discussing how maybe the big shuls in Melbourne and Sydney could help, you know, basically cover all the small shuls and have attract members from across Australia to what they can offer online. But in fact, in a way, it also favors the small community rabbis. Rabbis now have the feeling that they can reach a global audience. We've seen how, you know, friends and family can join services. People can upload their sermons. You know, you could do it, of course, before as blogs. You know, that you were able to get a written text to the global world, but now you can really get people kind of present online. And you know, that again is an opportunity for rabbis in small communities who are limited to their local population. Now, you know, again, the world is your oyster. The sky's the limit. You can have a global audience, you know, if you've got something to say. And then one more point. Having attended a lot of services in different communities now, it's amazing how homogenized our Jewish services are. I mean, some communities are creating new content, new music. Some rabbis have interesting sermons, but it's amazing. I guess it always was happening, right? The same sermon being given in 1,000 places. It's Joseph one week, everyone has nothing really new to say, but still has to say something anyway, because you've got 15 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever you have to do to talk. When that's suddenly exposed and we're all online saying the same thing, or not being inspired week in, week out, I wonder whether it's a time to maybe not to speak every week as we used to. Maybe only speak when you have something really interesting to say, and maybe before you did have a captive audience, but now they really can shop around. And of course I say that as a provocation. I'm sure you think, hey, I'm sure I always have something interesting to say, but I know I don't. And I think it's a big challenge to us to up our game, even at this time of great pressure and great trauma. To see how we kind of design ourselves for the next few years and for the world to come.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you. It's very interesting. Provocative is good. We have to think about when you see all the other rabbis talking about the same topics, am I so original? And we realize that actually, a lot of things have already been said. There's something which I really wanted to focus, and then I will stop talking. What you said about online education and local communities, I think there's a very interesting conversation to have here as to what can be shared with other communities, other countries even, and what is unique to one specific place. How do we keep the specific identity of a community where people want to belong, and what we can actually share? And you made a wonderful point for ERA, because I think this is exactly the type of forum where we can have this kind of conversation about what's important, what can we share with each other. Right, colleagues, I'm sure you have plenty of questions to ask to our presenters. I'm not sure if I will be able to see. I've got 3 screens, 3 pages, 3 windows on my screen, so I will try to be as fair as possible with you. Who wants to talk?
Can I jump in?
Yes, please, Joel. Yes.
And thank you to all 3 of you who found ways to connect to the issues. But I wanted to ask Nathan, in order to share the way you suggest, language is inevitably an issue. We're all talking English in a continent that has many languages, and in Italy, I know English doesn't work always. So is there work being done that you or any of the colleagues are aware of to have software that would make my words now come out in other languages for the listener, so that I speak English, but you hear Italian, and then I hear they speak Italian in a board meeting, but I get to hear English because I don't know Italian. Are any of us aware of that kind of technology that we can start to work on and introduce and really go global?
The one who invents it will make a lot of money, believe me. Anyone? Yeah?
Yeah, Menno?
Menno, yes, please go on, Menno.
Well, just two remarks about that. I and perhaps most of you joined several rabbinic seminars, I think about 300 or 400 rabbis. And it was also in South America. And there was Spanish, and there was a button on the bottom of the Zoom, which you can actually install, which translates it immediately from English into Spanish or whatever language. There should be an interpreter behind it, but there is a tool, absolutely. Yesterday, we had the bar mitzvah in our empty shul, only with 4 people. And both the mother and the sister of the bar mitzvah boy had a hearing impediment. So they hired an interpreter, and actually on the screen, they could immediately write down my sermon and the sermon of the boy, etc., etc. So they could actually see it while we were talking. So all these things are there to be used. I didn't know about it, but it's there.
That's true, yes. Thank you, Menno. I have a request for you. When you speak, can you just give your name and where you are for those who don't know all of us? Thank you. Any other comment, questions? You're very quiet for rabbis. Yeah, Reuven, yes. Reuven and then Walter, good, yeah.
Reuven Beifheim, Zurich, Switzerland. In a country with 3 languages, I can adhere to what Joel said. There is another thing, and that is that also if you talk, and I suppose that is for the 3 speakers, and I thank the 3 of you for this, for your talks, is that the reality on continental Europe is not that there are large communities and small communities adjacent and so on, but there are primarily small communities and spread out. And a small community doesn't always mean less resources, but it has another atmosphere to its being. So feeling the connection with the next community, which is 80 kilometers down the road for us, but it can be even further away when you live somewhere else in Europe, and say no more about feeling the connection with the EUPJ or another way further down the road, World Union, it's not so easily done, even in the time of Zooming and streaming.
Thank you. I've Walter and then Aaron.
Thank you. First, just to Nathan, I just have to put this in. It's meant to be a true story of the vicar who says to his congregation, "There will be no sermon this week as I have something important to tell you." It's clearly a major contrast for many of us. And one does think back to certain synagogues in the past where the rabbi spoke twice a year, Shabbat Shuvah and Shabbat Hagadol. I just wanted to speak very briefly to this language issue. Joel raises a good point because I'm sorry, I haven't introduced myself formally. I'm living in Berlin, but technically I'm still a rabbi in Warsaw, although thanks to COVID, I've not been there since Purim. And the arrangement we had was to send sermons in advance and have them translated, and to have a translator standing next to me whenever there were announcements to be made or things to be handled. My Polish is really only enough to order a beer, and even that's out of practice now. So it's not a new problem. What is a new issue, as was said by Nathan, is the technology. I am not aware of this instant translation button on Zoom. I am aware of Google Translate and this, oh dear, what's it called? L-Dive or something. There's a much better version where you can translate large chunks of text at any one time. So this can then be used in it when you're preparing at least certain things in advance. What I am actually very concerned about in a way was something that Andrew raised. To what extent the EUPJ will remain Anglo-centric after Brexit. I know this has been discussed already at certain European Union sort of fora, yes, to why are we using English still if the English have left us? It's a valid question and it's a broader one. And bearing in mind, we no longer always share, let us say, Yiddish as a common language or Ivrit as a common language. Adipul, somebody's just written, thank you, Stephen. It's going to be an issue that grows. So one can be geographically isolated, one can be technologically connected, but one can be linguistically lost. And I think this will be an issue for teaching, for conversions, for life cycle events, for anything. Incidentally, it's not new in any way at all, because when I was working as a rabbi in Germany, so many of my congregants did not speak German, but only Russian. And I would find myself having to do a hesped at a funeral, hoping that somebody would be able to translate my words for the family. So it's not just an international issue. Just wanted to throw that in. Thank you.
Can I?
Thank you. I have Aaron, Alexander, and then
Albert.
Sylvia.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, did I miss someone?
You did.
And Albert, yeah, sorry, Albert, yeah.
So thank you very much indeed, and it's lovely to see so many colleagues from literally around the world. I guess my question to the speakers really is around collaboration. I think that's the one word which I didn't necessarily hear from everybody. I heard words such as merger and things like that, but I think there's something about the way that we collaborate with each other, and I'm just interested to hear that. And in a sense, one can do that utterly positively from whatever size of community or type of community or language of community. It's just finding the right matches.
I'm happy to respond to that now or later, Renee.
Please go on, yes, yeah.
So thank you for the question, because it is something I should have mentioned as one of, I think, the very positive things that I've seen coming out of this time. We've had this kind of grassroots effort, and by that I mean it's not something that we at the CCR kind of created from a top-down point of view, but a lot of our colleagues, and it is mostly in the smaller congregations, have joined forces and for example, instead of bringing in that one speaker in person that you might have done 2 years ago, now people are saying, I really want to bring this speaker on Zoom to my community. Who wants to join with me and share the expense? And we can market it together and so on. And that I think is a very positive change, because it really helps especially with congregations that don't have the resources to do that much on their own. Now suddenly there's a much wider array of what you can do. It's a little bit of a challenge because we cover so many different time zones. So maybe that's an even easier kind of thing for your communities to do. But those, and I think obviously there are many types of collaboration. I don't think we've even begun to really scratch the surface, but I expect that we're going to be seeing a lot more collaboration going forward in some really, really creative and wonderful ways that are going to enrich all of our communities.
Thank you. I have now Alexander, I have Sylvia, Albert, and Michael. I try to keep up the list. So, Alexander, over to you.
Thank you. Just to continue with the idea of cooperation, I thought it's really great that thinking about it, especially what Nathan said about educational resources, and there should be a way to bundle them together on a website. We have CCR resources, we have CCR Press, we have everywhere in the world something going on, and it would be great to have it in one place with in a smart way, not just a list of links and so on and so forth, but in a smart way, a website where you can go and learn things from whatever language they can be, and this would be really from my perspective, the function of the World Union, to provide that kind of platform and make sure that, for example, books that are produced by CCR Press, available in Europe or available in other languages other than English. It's really a shame that we don't have anything in French or in Spanish, or very small amounts of offer. There are things that are produced by, for example, the Spanish Argentinian Liberal Sidor, which is great, and it would be great to have it in Europe. I have Spanish-speaking members in the community who would like to buy it, but it's impossible. So there are a lot of logistical issues, technicalities that the World Union could really take care of And that will be a great support for us, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexander. Sylvia?
So thank you. I just wanted to thank all three of the speakers. It was really, really good to hear Sergio talk about the locality and the intimacy of a community. And I really was very grateful that that was stressed, because I think we are potentially in some danger of precisely this worry that the best resourced sort of hoover up and don't make space for small communities. And I think that's just something we need to be aware of and to work with. I don't think it's something to judge. It's something that we need to kind of factor in. And I just kind of wanted to be a little bit iconoclastic here, really, because I've spent my entire rabbinic career very aware that rabbis come to meetings and they kind of go, I'm the senior rabbi of the biggest community here, and therefore somehow have more rabbinic status than the only rabbi of somebody working, you know, in a tiny community. But I just wanted to sort of say that maybe we need to look at ourselves a bit, therefore, and kind of what we respect, what we appear to value as we go forward. I love the idea of, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't say I'm Sylvia Rothschild. I am sitting in London, but I look after a community in Milan. I just want to say also about the language. This is a brilliant opportunity for Stop Progressive Judaism being seen as essentially the Anglo-Saxon, and to use all the other things. There are lots of French-speaking rabbis. There are Italian-speaking rabbis. We even have an Italian rabbinic student. There are Dutch-speaking rabbis. This is something also that we can develop our linguistic offerings, really, and make something of a gift to the world, rather than just kind of how do we get the most English speakers serviced. Stop there.
Yeah, I'm going to play a bit the Zionist here. We should actually all talk Hebrew. Huh? That's another issue. Albert, and then Michael, and then Gershon.
About language and cooperation and community. I guess in the first place, when we speak about continental Europe, most of the congregations on few apart, most of the congregations are small or tiny even. And I guess for most of the members, the families in our congregations are small or tiny. But for most of our members, the congregation is their extended family, their Großfamilien. And that is, I think that's a very important thing for us to remember, that maybe most of our members don't come to shul for the service, and probably even not, I have to say, for our very inspiring and very interesting words, but they come just to drink coffee with each other, because these are the people they live with. And that is the same for the people who come regularly, and for those that don't show up. They're still members of the Großfamilien, of the extended family that is that are our congregations. On that level, language is a problem, of course, because it's the language of emotion. It's a language where you connect to somebody. On all other languages or other levels, cooperation is easy and very easy to do. Most European rabbis are able to handle different languages, several languages, continental, I mean, in that sense, and live in a world where they know how to handle the other languages. And knowing another language has more to do with the will to understand than really the ability to speak, I think.
Thank you. Albert, can you just precise where you're from?
Oh, sorry. I'm Albert. I live in Rotterdam, in the Netherlands.
Okay, thank you. I have Michael, Gershon, and I think Daniela also wanted to intervene. Yeah, Michael.
Hello, everybody. I'm Michael Shire. I'm speaking to you from Boston, Massachusetts, but I'm also the High Holy Day Rabbi for the Oxford Jewish community and in the UK. So I already have that collaboration that we've been talking about, and I'm delighted to be with you for this Kallah. Thank Renee particularly for setting this up and ensuring that we can across the world find our voice together. Ever since I left the UK, I have been looking for a way to get re-involved with European Jewry. I loved that part of the work that I was doing in London so much, working with the World Union and the European Union, despite despite Brexit. I think there are so many ways that we could continue to work together. I'm working currently at a pluralist graduate school and seminary, Hebrew College, which has within its walls Orthodox, Reform, secular, Israeli, Russian, Sephardi, Ashkenazi, gender fluid, all the diversity of Jewish life, and I think a little bit of a model of what we'd all love to see. I want to pick something up from what Andrew said at the beginning. Beyond our own communities, large or small, what is our role now in this world, new world, outside of our own congregations? Andrew mentioned Lubavitch, and obviously it's not a model that particularly we emulate, but thinking about Judaism in the public square, and I'm thinking particularly, obviously, this week about the future of democracy and what's been happening here in the United States, but also in relationship to Eastern Europe, to Brexit, to the other kind of populist nationalist movements that are around the world today and the future of our democracy. I'm also thinking about the environmental crisis, and I suppose our biggest challenge in this entire world, and reflected in the virus, which is the whole issue of what have we done to our environment and how are we going to work and live side by side with our natural world. So I want to ask Sergio particularly, and maybe Nathan as well, and Harrow, of course, what is their view about the role of progressive Judaism now in this world, in the public square? Can we use this new world of collaboration, of joint working, of seeing ourselves as a global community to think about whether it's our publications or our lectures or our sermons or our teachings, how can we provide a public face for our Judaism that begins perhaps to do what the 19th century early reformers wanted to do, which was to create a Judaism that was appealing to the Western world, appealing to a new kind of thinking, a new kind of being, and to make our progressive Judaism the Judaism that really speaks to the future of the world. So that's my small question.
It's not small. It's a big question. I want only to address to your question, maybe for another perspective, because I agree with you that we lose some of the North, about the worldwide movement with a common agenda. And then I think that it's part of the paradigm that we need to really face. What is universal and what is particular? What is global and what is local? And then I want to share with you my point of view for my short experience in this position. We can't build up a common agenda if we don't make the right decision to build coalitions, collaborations, and to avoid overlapping and competition. One thing is what we say, we are one family, we are the same movement, we are only one, we really share values. But if you check on the field the facts, I don't so sure that we are going to the same place. I don't so sure that the leadership that we really performance is for the sake of the movement and not for achieve a success in the local agenda. I'm not sure if we are ready to sacrifice part of our ego and local interests to push a global agenda. On the other hand, maybe we can run here the first stage of the way that we can share. For example, if you are asking to the global institution, what is the value proposition, what is the agenda we are going in the global conversation, maybe I want to change the order of the question. In the name of the Burundi, I want to ask to Europe, what is your value proposition? What can Europe offer to the world, to the Jewish world, to the Jewish agenda, to the universal agenda? What is the common ground in Europe? Because it's not only an issue of culture and language. For me, it's not so clear what is the agenda from the progressive and liberal Judaism in Europe. That means that I can answer you what is our common agenda around the world. The first thing is to raise the question, but not to build it from top to down. That is the usual way that we are doing the things. Not is building from the stronger voice and to include minorities. No, we need to be really fair to say no matter how big you are, no matter how money you have, no matter how strong you are, if we are really a family, we are really a movement, we need to make the room to everyone around the table because everyone has a voice. And we need to build some consensus. That means that every voice are right, because we don't must be right, must be fair. We must really to include in a common agenda. And this is for me the challenge, because when make any comparison with other movements, for me, other movements are not better movements because they are right. Maybe they're build up consensus. They go out in front of the world to say, we are one, we are the same, we are together. That I don't think, I don't feel that is the position that we have today. My experience, again, it's that now the crisis obliges us. It's not that we have the willing. No. We don't have more room to overlapping and competition. We don't have it. That means that this crisis is an opportunity. Enough. We can work isolated. We can succeed if my region is the better region, the powerful region, the bigger region. And here we have another question that is not for me to answer, but maybe to share. What is the place of Israel in this conversation? What is the meaning of being Zionist in the reform movement? What is the reality in politics and challenges that we know that Israel is not only central, Israel is the future of the Jewish people, because the most population, the demography of the Jewish people is leading to a new Israel. That is not the Israel that we have today. That is not to make the confusion between the government of Israel and the state of Israel. But if we really support the state of Israel, now the question is, how can we run an open, symmetric conversation about Jewish progressive identity in a world that Israel is central, not because everyone makes Aliyah, but because Israel is a north in the ethical and the vision of the prophets of Israel and our commitment in every place, because we need to support to build a strong Israel in every place that we are. The advocacy for Jewish progressive Judaism includes Israel. Don't mean that the Israel reform movement lead us. No, it's a very important part, but it's not all the world. And can make any decision if we don't have a round table that everyone have a voice.
Brilliant, thank you, Sergio. I couldn't agree more. I think the top-down hierarchical institutions today are they don't have a lot of future. It's more, we're heading towards something more transversal, partnership, and I think I absolutely agree with you. Thank you. I think, Gershon and then Tamara.
Yeah, I'm responding to the concern that people...
Sorry, can you just introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry. I made a note to do that, and then, of course, I didn't read my note. I am Gershon Sillens. I'm currently assistant rabbi, just started as assistant rabbi at West London Synagogue in central London, and I'm speaking to you from North London. For the 10 years before this appointment, which came as quite a surprise for me, I was serving small communities, including in particular for the whole 10 years, the Lincolnshire Jewish community, which has like 30 people in it. So it's a big change. And I'm responding to the concern that people have that the well-resourced larger communities like West London Synagogue will put on a persuasive and attractive appearance for people, and they'll all be drawn away from their local shuls because they can sit in the same chair and go to West London Synagogue that they sit in for going to Lincoln. However, that's not been my experience. My congregants in Lincoln in particular know me very well, and have been generally fond of me, but I don't hear from them saying, "Oh, great sermon that you gave at West London Synagogue." They're still going to the fewer services that they have in Lincoln. Sometimes there's collaboration amongst geographically related, even though geography doesn't mean all that much, among geographically related communities, say in the East Midlands, and so forth. So we are seeing some differences because of the exclusion of geographic concerns, but we're not seeing, in my anecdotal understanding at least, a rush of congregants to the larger communities, at least what I've seen. Now, I was supposed to go to Texas for the 10th year for the High Holy Days to McAllen, Texas, which is right near the Mexican border, and that wasn't possible. And I sent them 150 voice recordings, so I was present. I was singing in Texas while I was sermonizing in London. Which was another side of this sort of geographical whatever, the abolishment of geography. We haven't really abolished it, but still we put a dent in it. So I think there's a lot of things that are going to be perhaps counterintuitively resolved over time. And so what I would say is open up there may be things that we don't like coming out of it, but I think that we're going to have to ride this wave as surfers rather than trying to make it hold still so we can look more closely at the consequences. Those are going to become obvious with time, but not something that I think we can predict.
Thank you. Tamara.
Hello, I'm from Amsterdam. I've a small community and I have a tiny community. And tiny is really tiny. And both of these communities have decided that they have a Zoom after last service. Although for one, it comes 5 people and the other comes 10. And they want to be with themselves. They don't find it very, very happy to sit with other people that they do know, but still it's not their community. That's what I want to say about this need for this small community to have its own identity. But I want to respond to Nathan, which I thought it was really, really interesting, because he really basically said you can open a Jewish school worldwide, which would be for the Netherlands wonderful, because now we've only a school, Jewish school, which only allows halakhically Jewish children, and we're stuck. But the idea that we could have a Jewish school, I was really inspired by that. And the other thing that I would like to know is, has anybody ever researched what Chabad uses for money and how many people they put in place in order to have their websites? Because if I go to the World Union website, I do not find what I find in Chabad. You have a question, you type it in, and you get on the Chabad website. And I think the World Union or the European Union or CCAR should basically put all its efforts in the same type of website where people can find anything they want, and not, is there a shul where I can go to or whatever. I think we should really research that success, because I did see Chabad come in when I was 15, and Chabad came to my town and built it up. And I'm 70 now, and I do think that their cloud has been their websites.
Thank you.
And I really think that we should look into what it takes to have that type of presence in the world.
If I'm not mistaken, I think there is a website, mydewishlearning.com, which is a
but it is not the same. It's not so sophisticated on all sorts of levels. It is. People do take My Jewish Learning too, but still it is way beyond as to what Chabad can offer.
Okay.
René, may I answer just briefly?
Sure, please, Nathan, go on.
Yeah, I think we have a lot to learn from Chabad. They're clearly decades ahead of us, or a decade or so ahead of us in terms of their use of technology. They're also ahead of us in the way they network, in the way they're all on the same page, in the way they fund their shlichim, their local organizations. We have a lot to learn from them. That's not to say that they do good in my eyes, at least, or whatever, but we have a lot to learn from how they do things.
Did anybody ever research as to how many people they use to build up keep these websites alive? Do they need 100 people, 200 people, 50 people?
So
Do I have any sort of idea what it would take for us to emulate it?
So I've read some literature on Chabad, and Sue Fishkoff, amongst others, has written on books on how the Chabad phenomenon, how they work. Yeah, it's a big operation. It's a big central operation. And it's not just the website, it's the resources that they produce centrally that then get printed locally. They're organized, top-down organized. If you're a local rabbi, you don't need to create too much. You just need to implement the programs. Now, of course, we work in a different way, and I think that's all to our good. I think we're all about empowering local leadership. We believe that in the autonomy of our local communities and our local rabbis, and I think that's one of our fortes. And ultimately, I'd rather be part of a democratic, empowering Jewish organization than one where you have to be part of certain families to be in charge. So we have to fight for our model, but it is a fight, and we're definitely behind in terms of how we resource and how we tackle that.
Okay, thank you. Reuven and then Walter. And Menno, yeah.
I would like to take it back to us rabbis, because of course we are part of the movements that we work in, operate in, but we are also part of the rabbinic fabric that serves these movements. And on that level, the direction of top-down or grassroots, of bottom-up, or whatever it's called, it's a bit of a challenge since, and I'm talking about continental Europe. I don't feel that our integrity is being respected by our Israeli and, or I will not generalize, but by some of our Israeli and by some of our North American colleagues, which is a very disturbing phenomenon, which is going along already for years, which we have tried to talk about with Danny Friedlander, and to no avail. I mean, it did not come to a solution yet, and let's say we are not there yet, but when it goes on, it could be, and I'm talking now about especially about the Israeli connection or disconnection, that we would have to say that we don't. Either way, we don't recognize outside of Israel done maram conversions, for instance. God forbid that we will come to such a thing, or vice versa, that the reform movement representative for the Sochnut would come and say these rabbis or these reform conversions, progressive liberal conversions from Europe are not being recognized by us. We have a grave conflict, and that's with Israel or with some of our Israeli colleagues. It's a conscious conflict with some of our North American colleagues. It's not a conflict because with all kinds of respect, they don't know what's going on in Europe, so that they are not aware of what's going on. The Israelis are very much so, and it's bothering me, and I know from colleagues here on the continent that's bothering them too. But we, as a small continental European rabbinic group, we being crushed between those two big groups. That's my feeling.
Okay, thank you, Reuven. Thank you. I don't know if Sergio O'Hara wanted to respond to that.
My only response is that we are working on that. Really, I agree with you that we need to support the regional autonomy and sovereignty of the collegiality of the rabbis and to respect the Batei Din. Also, we need to deal with the tension between national Beit Din and regional Beit Din. That is something that maybe also you can deal in Europe, because there are rabbis in different countries that say, if we have a national Beit Din, why we need a regional one? That means it's another part of the conversation. And for sure, we have a first meeting, including the Iraq lawyers in Israel and Sadia from Israel, to connect the conversion and the Giurim status in front the Israel and the Sochnut recognition. That is something very specific that we need to talk and to really to have a conversation, how to support the local Beit Din in each country and Europe in particularly, and to receive the support from Israel to do that. But it's clear, and you are right, Reuven, that here we have a conflict when you are a rabbi that belong to two different rabbinical assemblies or associations, and then you come into the field with the support and an overseas rabbinical assembly, and you don't respect the local standards of the regional Beit Din. I think that we are ready to set up the table to have the discussion, but I am aware and we are committed to help to resolve this big issue.
Can I comment, please, Sergio? Because there are two different things. First of all, there is the legal issue within Israel between the local reform movement and the Israeli government, and that's for the lawyers to do. But I'm pointing out the problem between the rabbis of Israel, of Maram, and the rabbis of continental Europe.
Agree.
And that will not be solved by Nikki Ma'or. That has to be solved between ourselves.
Agree 100% with you. We need to isolate different agendas and to be clear about how we work together, and also how we respect national and regional sovereignty and autonomy, and to help and to support the local rabbis with all the respect that we can have different standards of position, but we need to do that. And this is not an easy task. And you know very well, Reuven, that it's not only about region and country, also it's about personalities and who are leading the different assemblies in different times. This is something that we need to face in the human and personal approach, because it's not ideological, it's not halachic, and it's not rabbinical, it's personal.
Thank you. Indeed. So guys, we have a couple of minutes left. Hara, did you want to say anything about what concerning what Reuven said?
Well, I think it's somewhat of a different issue than what Sergio is just talking about. I've had conversations about this before. I've been educated by some of you here, including Reuven. You know, we've tried to do some education about this in our community, in our CCR community in North America. And I'm very happy to think about ways to do some more education about this. But we also have to just be honest about this, that we, as the CCR, we don't set standards for B'tei Din among our members. So we have no authority to say you may do this, you may not do this. It's really an issue of education, of sort of raising people's awareness. And even so, you know, we just don't, the way that we work as a rabbinic body is we have suggestions for things like conversion and B'tei Din, but we don't have rules.
Thank you. And I met with you both back in August. I remember we had a very interesting conversation about this, and it was great. So yeah, so Deborah, and then I think we will have to stop here.
Oh, I was.
Thank you, Renee. Raising their hands.
Okay, yeah, but you know, I will leave the link open if you want to continue. But the next workshop start in 15 minutes, and if some people want just to go and make a cup of tea or coffee or a glass of whiskey and go to the loo in between, we need a break because it's more tiring to be on Zoom than to be in the same room. So Deborah okay, Deborah, please go on. Yeah, Deborah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think, although it's not a short-term solution to the sorts of problems Reuven is raising, one of the values, and Nathan raised it about education, what we can do, I think in the future, we need to find ways of both being better connected to each other and maintaining the value of diversity. But one way we might think about solving some of these longer term problems is, I mean, people tend not to throw around their power in disturbing ways when they know each other and have known each other for long times and have respect for each other. And I've thought for some time that what we really need is ways for our rabbinical students to meet with each other while they're still in rabbinical school and develop relationships with each other. And that's something that, you know, this new internet world would create if we had a world union required semester-long course for every rabbinic student in the world, that covered things like how are our Batei Din different, how do we respect each other in our own little spaces, how do we develop those international relationships so we know who to tell people to go talk to when they come to us. That I think would be the thing that certainly from where I sit as principal of Leah Beck, I would love to see happening. You know, we're not going to get everybody all together in this same physical room for a semester, but I think this is the sort of thing that that Zoom and other platforms open up to us.
Okay, thank you, brilliant. Okay, we're going to stop now for 15 minutes. I wanted to thank from the bottom of my heart, Hara, who came from New York, who now is flying to Israel. Thank you, Sergio, for being here. Of course, you're most welcome to stay with us tonight. And I will invite you also to come to our AGM tomorrow at 3:20 UK time. So I don't know where, you just have to, it's like currency, you have to change. 3:20 UK time tomorrow, we have the AGM. So you're most welcome to attend if you want. So thank you, Sergio, to you as well. Thank you, Nathan, to be here as well. I know you're in Jerusalem now, yeah. So of course, you stay here as well because you're talking about something else later. So 15 minutes break. In 15 minutes, we'll meet again for the workshop on the 5 rabbinical schools in Europe. And I think that's a very exciting development in rabbinic training on our continent. So 15 minutes and we'll see each other. We'll leave the link open. So if you want to talk, and there is, okay, the CCR virtual convention, 13th, 17th of March, if you want to join there, and it's on their website as well. Okay, I'll see you in 15 minutes. Bye-bye.
Renee, I just direct messaged you.
Yes.
So that you are aware of this.
So it was about
our COLRAC fees.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, and I explained that it includes ERA membership, and it hasn't changed. And it hasn't changed since last year. So I don't.
No.
So I don't.
No, it hasn't changed. No.
So because you are not on our WhatsApp group, are you?
Yeah, could you put me back, please? I don't know. I used to be, and yeah, if you could just invite me back.
Have you got the link still? The easiest is just to click on that link that I sent. I can send that link again to you.
Yeah, if you send it again, it's probably easier.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Okay. See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Julia, are you here?
Me?
Hey, how are you? You okay?
Yeah, I will WhatsApp you.
Okay, good. Brilliant. Okay, it's good to see you. Okay, I need to go to the kitchen. See you in a second. Julia, I promise you.
Love you, Renee.
Hi, Renee. We've got a screen share with a coffee cup, which sort of somehow blocks out the gallery view of all people who are on. Do you think you can take that away again?
Jessica,
better.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's
Okay,
thank
good.
you. Yes. As nice
Renee,
as
I took your advice seriously. L'chaim.
Oh, that's a very good idea.
as nice as the coffee cup was, but it was a bit.
Well, I have the tea as well, but never mind.
Just in case.
By the way, how late is it going on tonight? I've forgotten. I've got the program somewhere.
So the session starts at a quarter to.
Mhm.
So 6:45 or 7, 6:45 for you, and then it finishes at 7:15 in the UK.
So it's 8:15 here. Okay.
8:15 here, and 9:15 in Odessa.
Right. And what time in Singapore? I mean, poor Nathan. What time was it for him today?
He's in Jerusalem.
Oh, he's in Jerusalem now. Okay, then I feel less sympathy. I thought he was still
Thanks, Walter.
8 hours. Oh, there he is again. Hi there.
Renee.
Yes.
I have on my schedule that it finishes at 6:15.
Yeah, I made a mistake because if it's 6:15, it's only half an hour.
Yeah.
And we can't really have 5 rabbinic schools in a half an hour. So it was my mistakes and my apologies.
So what is the corrected time?
7:15.
7:15.
7:15. Yes.
I
UK.
have to leave earlier. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's fine. Yeah.
Well, I'm one of the presenters.
You are one of the presenters.
Yeah.
Yes. You remember the Levison Institute in Amsterdam is presented by Menno ten Brink.
Yes. But perhaps you can see a bit before than after.
Okay.
Sorry about it. But, yeah.
Mark?
Yeah, I suggested to Jesse that for the breaks and for the schmooze time after the session, we use breakout rooms, if you all agree, that we can more easily speak, because we are such a large group. If we're in the same room sharing only one conversation, nobody dares to speak. But if we are in groups of 8 or 10, then we'll manage.
Mark, do you think that we should just have randomly assigned groups, or should we pick topics for each group, or is a way to divide it up?
Whatever, as long as we're allowed to move ourselves from one room to the other.
Mm-hmm. So they could just be numbered then, because we can just split people up, but then it becomes difficult to know which one do I want to join, what's happening in each group.
Choose colors
randomly.
Yeah, just numbered. Yes.
Okay.
That we want to talk to each other, do we?
Then if you don't,
I prefer to stay in the plenum actually for a few more minutes. It's only a few more minutes.
I was thinking for tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow we have moments where okay.
I just want to share actually something with the whole group. The discussion, I don't know whether Sergio is still on. I don't see him in the moment. I was in synagogue in Chile on Friday, in Santiago de Chile, because it was the yahrzeit of an auntie of mine. And the family that lives in Chile is no longer Jewish. So they go still always to synagogue, although they're not Jewish, and they invited me along. So I had a very nice service in Chile for Kabbalat Shabbat. And this is how small the world has become. I was actually in that synagogue, not in that exact same synagogue because it's a new building, but in that congregation some 20 years ago in person, but it was still a very nice situation to go for a yahrzeit of my auntie to Chile, to Santiago, to the synagogue at the 10:30 my time at night, but nevertheless, it was nice.
Daniela, what do you mean when you say they are no longer Jewish?
They're no longer Jewish. They're Catholics.
Okay.
The son married out a Catholic woman, and the children are all Catholics.
Okay, I think we can start our next session, and I wanted to welcome all of you from the UPJ, wherever you are, who have joined us on YouTube and Facebook for this session, which is about the European Rabbinical School. As you know, for many decades, it was after the war. I'm not talking before the war. After the war, there was only one Center for Rabbinic Training, which was based in London. And the early 2000s, a new center was created in Berlin. And then we had a center created in Amsterdam, and then another created in Moscow, which is connected now to the Abraham Geiger in Berlin. And the latest, the newest baby, actually, is the École Rabbinique de Paris, which came to light last year, if I remember. So I wanted to welcome tonight Rabbi, in order of creation of a rabbinical school. It's nothing more than that. So I wanted to welcome first Rabbi Dr. Deborah Kahn-Harris, the principal of Leobeck College. In London, Rabbi Dr. Walter Homolka, the principal of Abraham Geiger College in Berlin, and also the Frankel Institute, if I'm right, Walter. Rabbi Nathan Alfred, who is the acting principal of the Institute for Modern Jewish Studies in Moscow. Rabbi Menno ten Brink, who is the principal of the Levison Institute in Amsterdam. And Rabbi Pauline Beb, who is the principal of our latest seminary, the École Rabbinique de Paris in Paris. In case of you didn't understand my French accent, it's in Paris. So each of you have 20 minutes to present your center of study. And I suggested we follow, we start with Leobeck, then with Abraham Geiger, then Moscow because it's connected to the Geiger now, then the Levison, and then the École Rabbinique de Paris. So you have about 20 minutes each, and then we will open the floor to questions, discussions from the rabbis on the call, and also from all our EUPJ members who are following us on YouTube and on Twitter and on Facebook. So over to you, Rabbi Deborah Kahn-Harris.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen so you can see my PowerPoint. So thank you all, and thank you, René, for inviting us to participate in this activity. I'm looking forward. I think especially saying welcome to all the people on YouTube who I can't see and who are following us on other mediums, and I look forward to your questions as well. So this is Leobeck College, who we are and what we do, and here is, of course, a lovely photo of some of our students and faculty and graduates in our room of prayer. And I will come to it, but prayer is in some ways, many ways, at the heart of what we do. Our mission statement, which you can find on our website, is that Leobeck College is a preeminent institution of Jewish scholarship and learning that is at the heart of the intellectual and spiritual life of the progressive Jewish community. Leobeck College combines inspirational, high-caliber teaching with a commitment to developing rabbis, other professionals, and lay leaders who will build sustainable, accessible, and thriving progressive Jewish communities. And you can see here photos of us in all sorts of different ways in which we work in our communities, in students praying. This is a current group of students. That was last year's first year class. Education students in the process of learning and being taught, one of our ordination photos, one of our graduates, and we're so thrilled that this is actually a photo for one of our graduates leading the music for ordination for a new class of students, and our lovely and wonderful librarian, and we'll come to more about all of those subjects. So what is Leobeck College? Leobeck College was founded by Rabbi Dr. Werner van der Zyl, who was a refugee from Nazi Germany. He came to the UK, and following the ravages of the Shoah and the Second World War, he resolved that Europe needed its own seminary to train rabbis for the progressive Jewish world, in order to rebuild European Jewry. And although it was started in London in 1956, modeled on the Berlin Hochschule, where he had studied himself, it really was a vision that it should service more than just the UK. It was originally named the Jewish Theological College, but when Rabbi Dr. Leo Beck died, and he died very shortly, within a matter of months after the college opened, it was renamed in his honor. Since 1964, much of the core funding of the college has been jointly supported by both what's now known as Reform Judaism and Liberal Judaism, two separate movements in the United Kingdom. We also get funding from a variety of other sources, including the European Union for Progressive Judaism. We really were set up to rebuild progressive Jewish life in Europe, and for the past 65 years, our graduates have steadily helped to do that. And I think the greatest tribute to that is the fact that all 5 seminaries that are presenting today will be being presented by people who have studied at Leo Baeck College. I can't really say more than that about the effect and the influence that we've had. If we're good at training rabbis, we're clearly also good at training people who want to lead seminaries as well. So, and that gives me the greatest amount of pride and joy to know that we are been part of that. We offer degree level programs, not only for rabbis, but also for professional Jewish educators, Jewish academics. We also offer high-level continuing education at the non-degree level for all progressive Jews through our Leo Baeck College Lehrhaus program, which I'll come to in a few minutes. We also have the Leo Baeck College Library, which again, I'll talk a bit more about, but is one of the most important Jewish libraries in Europe. So, a little bit about rabbinic training. It has always been the core of what we do. We have trained rabbis for UK and continental Europe, as well as further afield. Our rabbinic alumni have served a wide array of places, and you can see a short list of some of them. We've ordained in excess of 200 rabbis now. And you know, lots of firsts. The first female rabbi in Europe, Rabbi Jackie Tabbick, who I can't see, everybody might well be on this call at the moment. Europe's first openly LGBTQI plus rabbis, Rabbi Elizabeth Sarah and Rabbi Sheila Schulman in 1989. Rabbi Pauline Beb, France's first female rabbi, Rabbi Sondra Kviet, Denmark's first female rabbi, lots of those sorts of things. We also ordained Spain's first Spanish-born progressive rabbi in Jewish history, Rabbi Chaim Casas, in 2017. And here you can see a photo of Rabbi Lionel Bluesy, who's in the UK was something of a national treasure. He was one of our very first 2 ordinands in 1958. And in the corner here you can see our most recent graduating class, Rabbi Dr. Elliot Karstadt, Rabbi Anna Posner, Rabbi Deborah Bluston, and Rabbi Matti Kirschenbaum, all of whom are currently serving UK-based communities. This is the basic outline of our program. And while I would say, yes, it's the college's intellectual property, it's also not a state secret. We've shared it with some of our other seminaries. We're happy to continue to share it. It's publicly available in our prospectus, which is available at the Leo Baeck College website, because I'm sure that there are questions about it. I'm not going to go into vast details. All 5 years have high-level academic programming that combines intensive language acquisition, Bible, Tanakh, liturgy, rabbinic literature, Talmud, Midrash, Shut, other sorts of classical rabbinic literature, Jewish history, Jewish philosophy, Jewish theology, a whole range of the kind of basic Jewish academic life that you would want. We have what I call here training experiences. Some of you might prefer the term placements. This includes both in synagogue, also in educational settings, and also a unique program that we've developed here in the UK with Jewish Care, Norwich, our major Jewish social care institutions in this country, and then a whole range of vocational modules that take place throughout the 5 years. Well, all of our students have a rabbinic tutor throughout their 5 years and rabbinic mentors as well. They have slightly different functions. Again, I'm happy to answer questions on that. We have an MA in Jewish education, and here you can see Avi Marco, one of our more recent students, getting his MA in 2018. It's currently taught via what's known in the UK as blended methods, which means that most of it's done online with some limited residency in the UK, which is a couple of weeks a year, which even post-Brexit is fully available to anybody who wanted to do it. We are, however, looking to move it as a fully online delivery, which means anybody anywhere in the world would be able to take the course. We have had students not only in the UK, but also across Europe, and now students who've graduated working internationally. It creates highly skilled professional educators for a variety of settings, particularly synagogues, particularly thinking of head teachers of Chadarim, people working, however, also in Jewish day schools, full-time at Jewish education as well. And again, there's more information about that on our website, and Dr. Joanne Myers, who's Director of Jewish Education, can always answer more questions about that. Now, we've also started running what I referred to before as the Leerbeck College Lehrhaus. And here you can see Rabbi Renee Fertzel, a screenshot of him teaching his Lehrhaus class online. We currently have had well in excess of 250 students from really across the globe this year. We've had people living up in the Arctic and people in Australia. We even, for some unknown reason, have had people living in Israel wanting to take our Ulpan courses. So really all over, but most of the people who participate are, of course, coming from Europe. We have 3 different kind of core subjects that we teach. We teach language study, modern Hebrew, and classical Greek. We have a whole range of Jewish studies courses, from Bible, contemporary Jewish thought, everything in between, depending on the semester. We do have some Jewish education, particularly aimed at Cheder teachers. At the moment, and for as long as the pandemic means that we can't do anything in person anyway, it's all being taught online. All of our courses are taught by LBC faculty and other experts in their fields that we hand choose. We have models of going directly into synagogues to teach, also teaching in person at the college's home base at the Sternberg Center in Finchley. But as I said, right now, everything's online. Most of the courses range from 4 weeks to 8 weeks long, and you can find lots more information on our website about additional learning opportunities. We're delighted to have anyone from across Europe. At the moment, the courses are all taught in English. We have tried to teach in French on one occasion, and we are open to working with you and your community. So if you would like to contact myself or Dr. Jan Myers again directly and say, we'd love a Lehrhaus course for our community in our language or in English, we would be happy to work with you to make that happen. So please do contact us. And there are currently a couple of communities in the UK who see us as their main deliverer of Jewish adult education. Now, we also have the Leerbeck College Library. We have in excess of 60,000 volumes. Those of you who've studied with us will recognize the photos. We have archival materials as well relating to the history of progressive Judaism, particularly in the UK, but also a little bit more extensive than that, including our very important rare book collection. And part of that, for example, is we have a very serious collection of Sidurim from the very first liberal Jewish communities in Germany from the 19th century, for example. And that's really all of our histories. So we have some really important and unique materials. We've got a Bomberg Bible, which is the first printed Hebrew edition of the Bible from the 16th century. We've got lots of other things, and it's regularly used by international scholars. If you're in London, feel free to stop by. Obviously, when the world is open again to in-person opportunities, the college library is really available to anybody in the World Union family, and we're delighted for people to use it. Our senior librarian, Cassie Sachar, will be delighted to welcome you If you need online resource, particularly if you're an alumni of the institution and you need an online resource during these times, again, please contact Cassie. You can find her details on the website, and she'll be happy to do what she can to provide materials for you. Now, I said I'd say something about the college's prayer life because it's really at the heart of the ethos of what we do. And here you've just got some photos of different ways in which we participate in our prayer. And some of you on this call will recognize yourself in these photos. Pictures from Shacharit, pictures from Torah service in Shacharit. You can see Julia grinning down there. But also other things we do, like our Purim celebrations, which are a massive part of our communal experience together annually. And an institution we started by Rabbi Nathan Godleman a few years ago, which we call Leo Bear Day, which is an opportunity for us to all bring in our teddy bears and raise money for a very important UK charity called Children in Need. But why do I say prayer life is so important? It's not just about the fact that our rabbinic graduates are going to go on to lead services. Of course, that's a great opportunity for them to learn how to do that. It's about community building. It's about that at our philosophy that at the core of what it means to be a Jewish community is to be a community that prays together. It's about how we come together to do that and to create our own sense of community that at its heart has God. It's a little discussed subject sometimes in progressive Judaism, God, but it's really important. God is really important to all we do. And to be able to pray together, to experiment together, to live through each other's highs and lows. Over the past year, we've celebrated engagements, birth of children in our communities, and an ever-growing list of bereavements as well. And that's part of what it means to be part of a community. And we believe fundamentally that in order to train rabbis, in order to train educators, in order to train the people who will become the core of our communities, we have to start by modeling what a community is. And that's what we believe Leo Baeck College is. It's a vibrant, thriving community where what we do extends out into the bigger world as well. How we create community together enables the people who come to train with us to bring that communal life out into their congregations with them. And whether that's in person, as many of these photos are, or online. And I am so proud to be able to say that throughout the pandemic, Leo Baeck College students and faculty and other participants in our morning Shacharit services have pretty much maintained daily Shacharit services, Monday to Thursday at least, throughout the lockdown period here in the UK, which means since last March, well beyond the normal bounds of our term time, and have really enabled many people to become part of our community. And so that's really what I want to leave you with. For us, Leo Baeck College is the community that's at the heart of all of our progressive communities, and that so much flows out from that. And we are very proud to have served the World Union and the EUPJ for the past 65 years. Thank you very much, and I'll be happy later to answer any questions.
Thank you, Deborah. That was a passionate presentation of Leo Baeck College, and a lot of us are indebted to the college. Indeed, you're right. Walter, I have a question for you. I made a mistake when I prepared the program. It finishes at 7:15 UK time, not 6:15. And Menno has told me that he has to go in about 25 minutes. Would you mind if I let Menno make his presentation? You okay about it? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Menno, my apologies for this glitch in the program, and thank you, Walter, for accepting to do that.
Thanks, Walter. It's nothing personal. Personal in my home. Okay, I will try to share. Let me see. Can you see this?
No, we can't.
You can't. Okay, then I have to. Oh, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to share screen.
I think you should be allowed, Jesse.
Let me
Should
see.
be.
Yeah.
Jess, did you receive it from me?
Yes.
Is it possible that you will do it?
I can do this.
Oh,
Let me
thank you.
check. Let me get my.
Otherwise, it takes too much time. Thanks a lot. Okay. Well, in the first place, I didn't introduce myself. I'm in Amsterdam and rabbi of the liberal Jewish community in Amsterdam, and also dean. You said president, but I'm dean of the Levison Institute. I hope the PowerPoint will appear. Yes. Oh, you're terrific. Okay, but I can't operate it, so you have to. Is it okay? So, if you show me the first, yes. Okay, thank you. No, that's right. Okay. Well, it is in Dutch. As we said, we do not speak all English, so I show you how Dutch is working. The Levison Institute was started by Rabbi David Lilienthal, my predecessor, and named after Bob Levison. Bob Levison was one of the big reform men who also obtained the title Moreno Harav, many years chair of the Hague congregation and of the Union for Progressive Judaism in the Netherlands. Okay, you can go to the second one. We started in 2002, mainly to have new rabbis for the Dutch language area. Of course, all my generation of rabbis were trained by either Leobeck College or Hebrew Union College in Israel, mainly by LBC. We needed more rabbis, new rabbis, and cantors, and other people who can actually act professionally in congregations in Holland, for also a growing Reform Jewish community in the Netherlands. When you look at the people who are here, I think we have 4 people. I just want to have, yeah, okay. We have 4 colleagues altogether of about 9 Dutch rabbis that are now functioning in the Netherlands. For a small country, we are really big. Also, new rabbis to substitute for rabbis who went on retirement, and also to follow the study in Dutch. Okay, next, please. So, as you know already, Leobeck College, Abraham Geiger College, Levison Institute, and the new one in Paris, and also in Moscow, and outside Europe, Hebrew Union College, Cincinnati, Los Angeles, New York, and Jerusalem, and other places. Okay, let's go to the next one. Right, so what do we offer to our students? We offer a rabbinic course, 5-year, part-time, also because most of the rabbis, most of the people who want to become rabbi have other professions as well. It is not for everybody possible to move to London, as I did in those days, and leave a family or whatever is difficult. So we created the Levison Institute for people to stay here and to study together with a profession that they have, and they need also, of course, the money to live on. There are also other courses taught at the Levison Institute, and we will see that in a while. Courses, lectures are organized, Rimon, I will tell about it, and several publications. Okay, next. So I said we have a 5-year part-time education. On the left-hand side, you see a picture from the synagogue in The Hague. Marianne van Praag is here She's the rabbi in The Hague. And on the left-hand side, you see her at the Semicha service, where Marianne Kine, Nava Tehila, Tamara Benima, you see her as well, and Albert Winger, and you see him as well. And colleague Avram Soetendorp. And this was the moment that we got in one go 5 new rabbis. On the right-hand side, you see me several years ago giving the smicha to Joram Rookmaker, my part-time colleague in Amsterdam. And he's chaplain to the Dutch forces, what I was actually when I was at Leeuwenberg College already, and the ear of David Lilienthal. Then on the bottom, that is a class with Annette Buckler. Most of you know her also from Leeuwenberg College. She is studying now at Levison Institute together with another student, Asher Waterman. He is our own breed from Amsterdam. And Annette, as you know, is from Germany. She's now a sort of sabbatical to put things in order. But of course, she started at Leeuwenberg College and moved on to Levison. Okay, next. The content of the rabbinic education, and of course it's more or less the same as all the colleges, I guess. We have academic areas and pastoral areas. Academic, Hebrew, rabbinic literature, halakha, Jewish history, history of liberal Judaism, Israel, Jewish philosophy, theology, liturgical traditions, and dialogue, interreligious dialogue. Pastoral areas, liberal liturgy, so also for birth and chupot, etc., etc. How to be able to have no boring drashot, the rituals around the life cycle events, also College van Rabbijnen, that's our assembly of rabbis, the Beit Din, to instruct people and also to have a stage. Actually, Peter Luijendijk, most of you know them from England, studying at Leeuwenberg College, is now doing a apprenticeship in Rotterdam together with Albert. The Jewish social map in Holland, but also in Europe and in the world. Psychosocial problems that a rabbi can face, how to act in talks with people, conflicthantering, we call it, to handle conflicts, pastoral care, counseling, management qualities, and supervision for the student. Okay. Here you see the class of the Shlichei Tzibur several years ago. You see a lot of people, and on a personal level, my son at the right-hand side, he's covering his mouth, which he shouldn't do as a Shaliach Tzibur, but okay. Most of them act as a Shaliach Tzibur, Shlichat Tzibur, in one of our congregations, or can actually fill up the gaps that are there. Also in the smaller congregations where we can't afford to pay a full-time Shaliach Tzibur, even a part-time Shaliach Tzibur. Okay, you see, male, female, we don't care. As long as they are Jewish, it's okay. Then Gabaim. We had also a course in Gabaut. You see, again, in the synagogue in The Hague, just to show you that Amsterdam is not always the ruling power in the Netherlands. In the front, 4 rabbis, Ira Goldberg, by then he's now in the States, and people who are trained to become a gabbai in their several synagogues. On the right-hand side, you see the gabbai, the Madrich Hagabbai, the guide for the Gabbaim, Francine Putman. You see her second row in the front. She's our director of the Levison Institute, and she mainly compiled this guide. It is very useful and can be used everywhere. Also new innovations, well, innovations always new, innovations with liturgy for modern situations like same-sex marriages, which we do, and so on and so on. Okay, next. Here, Ba'ale Koré is another course that we taught. You see, well, just a picture. One of the teachers, Hannah van Unen, who still teaches people individually also how to read the Torah. Of course, not only reading, but lining. That is how it should be done. Okay. Baal Tfilah. We just finished last year with a 2-year course about Tfilah. Lay people can actually lead services if there is no rabbi available. In the smaller congregations, of course, not always a rabbi is available. And so it is very, very handy that that our lay people who can actually lead a service. And it's not as Shaliach Tzibur, but as Ba'alei Tfilah. That's why we call it like that. So being the stand-in a way for the rabbi. Also, Shiva services, Friday evening, Shabbat morning, and festivals. Yes. Rimon, and that's a little bit of a, well, it's a little bit past, but there is a umbrella organization for teachers of Talmudei Torah for the youth from 3 till 13 years. Also websites and all these kind of things to make the combination to help each other. Also in smaller congregations where there is no teacher, there are hardly any children, how to deal with Talmud Torah and how to spread the knowledge in a good way. So this is changing. It's still called Rimon, but not for a long time anymore, I think. Okay, the next. So here you see teachers around the table in our small Beit Midrash in Amsterdam, all head of educations and people who are in charge of Talmud Torah in the country, in all the, 8 congregations that we have. Thank you. This is it possible to enlarge it a little bit? Especially the picture, of course. Well, if not, then
sorry, I don't think so.
No, okay, that's fine. Okay, it is a picture taken with the smicha of Joram Rookmaker. You see the whole lot of teachers and rabbis, and the chair in the middle of the Levinson Institute. Ella. Okay. And the website www.levison.nl. It is also in English. And on the website, you can actually find a lot of things, and that you can see in the, Can
I just say, if you want to enlarge it, at the top, you have view options. Click on that arrow, and then you can say zoom ratio, and then you can enlarge it. Everybody can do that for themselves.
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks. So there you can see what is on our website. On our website is, for instance, the Sidra of the Shabbat, translated a lot of years. It has been done by Tamara Benima to translate it from English into Dutch. And you can find also the lectures that we have several times a year. You can find a music library, which is pretty good. A music library, especially, of course, for the Shlichei Tzibur, Chazanim, but also internationally, you can use it and you can visit it. I think there's a last picture. Yes, well, this is the Troika. We are the management team. There is no principal. I am the dean, but on the right-hand side is Francine Putman. She's our director, part-time, the only paid person in our organization. On the left-hand side, Marianne van Praag, the rabbi in The Hague, and we are the three of us, the management team of the Leveson Institute. There's also a board. There's no picture of the board, I think. Yes, next picture. Okay, finance, always important. We don't have any support from the government because religion and politics and government are split. Religion is private, is nothing public. So all the funds that we need to find, we do find in private funds, organizations, foundations, etc. We have a Maror organization, which is specific for Holland. They are payments by the state that they paid this Maror organization out of the stolen money during the Shoah. And we are now also using this money to educate our rabbis, chazanim, gabbaim, teachers, etc., for for a still growing liberal Judaism in the Netherlands. I think that was the last one, but I'm not sure. Yes, okay. Okay, if you have any questions, please ask. I need to leave in 10 minutes, but I think for a small country, to be honest, I'm proud on what was established over the last years. Okay, René, back to you.
Thank you, Menno. Thank you for this presentation.
Thank you.
And now over to Walter to present the Abraham Geiger colleague in Berlin.
Bijna.
Thank you very much. I don't think that anybody of you knows Petra Teilhaber. Petra Teilhaber was a very active member in the growing progressive Jewish movement in Germany at the end of the 90s. And she was our hope for a future religious leader. She applied to rabbinical school, she got accepted, but the Central Council of Jews in Germany withheld a scholarship for her on the basis that women are not employed as rabbis in Germany, and why would they waste the money? Unfortunately, the World Union also wasn't able to pay for her studies, and I'm sad to say we lost Petra. Petra then went to Australia, did something else, but she could have been here today. And I think that was one of the reasons why we started to think about an indigenous German rabbinic training program that would be training male and female students, that also was free of tuition, offered a sound academic basis, and also should offer bursaries to support students during their studies. And I think it was Petra that motivated me personally to see to it. The situation in Germany also changed after 1990. It was a very small Jewish community of less than 25,000 Jews before, but we had an influx after 1990 of some 200,000 Jews from the former FSU, and all of a sudden Germany moved from a very passive to a very active part in the future of European Jewish life, with 120 congregations overall and some 25 progressive congregations in the Union of Progressive Jews in general. I will talk about 6 important dates: 1999, which was the founding of the Abraham Geiger College, so we are now 22 years old. 2006, we had the first ordination. after a 5-year program. So you can see that the establishment of the school, the first class was in 2001, first ordination was in 2006. In 2007, we added a cantorial program. In 2010, we added the Benno Jakob Scholarship Program, which fulfilled our dream to offer bursaries to every student, German, European Union, or worldwide student, overseas student, as they say. In 2013, we made another big step in that we changed our environment from a private school training center into a part of the state university. Jewish theology became a subject taught at German universities, and that changed the whole perspective of the school. So now the Abraham Geiger College is responsible for vocational training, and the School of Jewish Theology at the University of Potsdam is responsible for the academic program. And in 2021, in about 8 weeks, we will move to our new building, which you can see at the bottom of this slide. And that gives you an overall perspective of the last 22 years. Our mission, I already stated, that's a view of the campus. Modern building is the new School of Jewish Theology, and the old building is the President's Building opposite to it. Our mission is to study, to offer an academic program that is rigorous and also internationally among the best. We try to offer this course of study tuition-free, which is possible because it's part of the German university system, which does not ask for tuition. And we also do support students, any student with a non-repayable bursary, to also allow him or her to concentrate on the studies rather than also have to work on the side. The MA in Jewish theology takes 5 years. It is now moved to English. It started in the German language, but we now teach in English. It's 5 years full time, and you do the practical training on the side. We also offer a doctoral program for anybody who would like to do that, also tuition free. I think over the years, we can say that we created a unique path to the rabbinate and thereby contributing to the mission of the World Union that had always said that if only the resource of rabbis and religious leaders was available, we would see an unprecedented growth of the progressive movement. I hope that we can contribute with that. With our international student body, here is a picture of the ordination this year. As I said, the Benno Jacob Scholarship Program is a pillar of that, so that we can offer the training free of charge. You can also see some of the conservative rabbinical students on that picture, because in 2013 we were joined by a conservative rabbinical school, the Zacharias Frankel College, which is done in connection with the Ziegler School in Los Angeles. They have 3 graduates now, and we join the academic program with the Zacharias Frankel College. And now I turn to Rabbi Edward van Volen, our vocational director, who will talk about the next couple of slides.
Thank you very much, Walter. It's indeed marvelous as a graduate of the Leo Baeck College that I was invited in 2001 by Walter to help set up the college. In the meantime, we have 41 alumni. They're active all over Europe, but also in South Africa, in the United States, and soon in South America as well. And of course, in Israel, we also have a graduate. And our graduates are both rabbinical alumni and alumni from our cantorial school. You see on the left a picture of one of our graduates together with Professor Eli Schleifer from Hebrew Union College. All right, the next slide, please.
That's just an overview of the 41 graduates,
Yes.
50% international, 50% serving in Germany.
And then part of our training is, of course, the practical training we do in this from the second year on. People start to shadow. They visit congregations, and currently they do that by visiting through the Zoom services that are offered in the various congregations. They visit the places both in Europe and in the and if possible the countries of their origin, to critically have a look at what's going on and reflect on their observations as students. And in the third year they started regularly doing services, starting with German congregations, and if there are students from abroad, often also in the country of where they came from. We try to give all our students a very wide perspective of experiences. And in the final year, they visit congregations where we hope to create jobs. So thanks to our excellent connections with the German congregations and many European congregations, we find out where placement is feasible, and we do our best to create jobs. We have been successful in that, I'm proud to say. On the left you see David Maxa, who started working in the Czech Republic, in Prague, and in some provincial congregations. And on the right, you see a formerly American, now German graduate who is working for the Leo Baeck Foundation. So all of our students, we have currently 160 students enrolled in the School of Jewish Theology at Potsdam University. 20 students are of our rabbinical and cantorial program in the current semester, 9 women and 11 men. And as you can see, from a wide variety of countries. So there is no majority language spoken, but always a wide variety of languages. And the common language is Hebrew and English. And you see what that means. It means that students are fluent and are exchanging with each other, meeting each other, going to each other's congregations where they have internships. It's a marvelous crowd. We have every Thursday morning, we have a Shacharit service where they practice and where they explore possibilities with new songs, new prayers, new melodies which they compose themselves, and new prayers which they also make. It's a very creative and very exciting group with a great difference in age, so between 22 and 62 years old. And it's a marvelous group. It's a real pleasure to work with them. Okay.
The great turn of the developments was in 2013. Before, we had been guests of the University of Potsdam, using the usual Jewish Studies master's program and adding to it what we felt was missing. after 2013, we actually became masters of the Jewish theology program, which we could shape the way we wanted it. And that also allowed us as a integral part of the university to develop the Erasmus exchange program with a lot of universities. And that is, of course, a great possibility for students to widen their horizon. Especially important to us are two connections. The one is Moscow, and I think Nathan Alfred will talk about that in a while. And the second one is Budapest. We have started since 2019 to have closer ties with the Rabbinical Seminary in Budapest, linking the School of Jewish Theology with it through the Erasmus program. We are actually signing the Erasmus agreement in the next couple of weeks. The Budapest Seminary has also employed two of our graduates. Anita Kantor from the Abraham Geiger College will work at the Budapest Rabbinical Seminary on the faculty, and Zacharias Frankl College graduate Josh Wiener will be the new rabbi in the Rombach Synagogue and also the head of the Rabbinical Seminary's synagogue. So we hope that through this connection with one of the oldest rabbinical schools remaining in the world from 1877, we add another feature. Here is an overview of the academic faculty. Due to the nature of being a part of the university, all of these appointments have been made at the university with our participation and also the participation of the German Rabbinical Conference. Professor Admiel Kosman from Bar-Ilan University is the Talmud teacher. Professor Koch-Malnik teaches Jewish religion, Jewish religious philosophy. Jonathan Schorsch, from the son of Isma Schorsch, is a Columbia graduate. He teaches Jewish religious history. The names after the professors are their assistants and staff. We were happy to just appoint for Hebrew Bible Professor Idan Dershowitz from Harvard. And in biblical archaeology, we started a whole MA major, so that now biblical archaeology can also be studied at our school. I teach modern Jewish philosophy and interreligious dialogue. We also have, and that's something that we took from a suggestion we took from Hebrew Union College, to have a professorship of New Testament in Jewish perspective, so as to enable people graduating with us to have an active part in the interreligious dialogue. We're happy to have Professor Kathy Ernstberger from St. David's University College in Lempeter here, and her assistant Dr. Hoppe. Practical theology is a whole group of teachers led by Professor Dr. Klessmann. And in Halacha, we rely on Dr. Rembaum and Dr. Liturgy, taught by Professor Dahlia Marx from Hebrew Union College. And I'm not going through that in detail, but you can see that it is a pretty large group, and the cantorial program has also a number of international and national professors and teachers. Spiritual care and personal development is an important part here, and some of you may know Marcus Lange from England, who has taken over a lot of the teaching here in Germany in the meantime. Okay. All of this comes at an expense, so I give you an overview of what the overall costs are. for faculty and staff. We're about 1.5 million a year. We had an administrative overhead of 240,000, and the year in Israel, which is obligatory for the third-year students, is 100,000 euro every year. So I would say running Abraham Geiger College and the School of Jewish Theology is an expense of 2 million euro per annum. The last date I gave you was 2021. The new building on the campus of the University of Potsdam is finished. Now, the University of Potsdam, and you may not know this, is situated at the former Imperial Palace in Potsdam. So we got one of those mansions on the premises of the Imperial Palace, which is a UNESCO World site. And this is the front of the new rabbinical school. Here you get an architectural view. It has been renovated in the past couple of years for $12 million, and it brought a 1756 building to a very modern state. I give you some views of the synagogue here, which is at the center of this new Center of Jewish Scholarship. And that's the School of Jewish Theology with its remarkable arts project. The artist calls these windows, this is not a thorn bush, but if you actually see it in the night, you can see that picture of a thorn bush. And we have actually taken quite some care in adding modern art to the new campus of the Abraham Geiger College. I think that's it, and I would like to hand over to Nathan Alfred to give an overview of how the cooperation with Moscow works. I think the general idea is that we have tried to find ways to shorten the period of studies in Germany so as to enable people to take part of their rabbinical training at home. And that is the idea of our Moscow connection with the University of Humanities, so that people then do the bachelor's program with a syllabus that is under our supervision. Then students join in the third year in the Israel program, and the students from Moscow then join us for the master's program in Potsdam for the fourth and the fifth year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Walter. Nathan, do you want to continue? Where are you, Nathan? Yeah.
I'm here. Thank you. Thank you, Walter. Thank you, Rene. Yes, I'm here to represent the Institute of Modern Jewish Studies in Moscow. I must start by paying tribute to my esteemed predecessor, Dr. Alex Kagan, who many of you know, who was really the main instigator behind the Institute, and which has been the rector of the Institute since 2015, its opening, until the past month, when he left his position at the World Union to focus on his career as a psychologist. And so as a temporary measure, I've taken over the running of the Institute, supported by our rabbis and staff in Moscow, and especially our colleague Rabbi Leonid Bimbat. So the Institute of Modern Jewish Studies in Moscow was opened in 2015, a wonderful partnership between the World Union, our community in Moscow, the Russian State University of Humanities in Moscow, and of course the Abraham Geiger College. It was designed to train rabbis locally for our communities in Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. And in general, it's been set up to accept a minimum of 6 students a year for a 4-year BA program in Moscow. And the top students are interviewed by the Abraham Geiger College, and after some time spent in Israel, moved to Potsdam for the last 2 years, the 5th and 6th year of their studies. Happily, we have now 2 students in their final year of studies in Germany who should graduate and gain their smicha from Abraham Geiger College at the end of 2021. We also have a 3rd student in Berlin, 1 year behind his 2 pioneering colleagues. Furthermore, we have 14 students currently studying in Moscow, although due to problems with Corona, no current first year, we had no intake in 2020. 3 of the current students have been preliminarily accepted at Abraham Geiger College, 2 as rabbis, and 1, the first one, as a cantor, and should take up their studies there in due course. The BA curriculum in Moscow is a unique blend of a Jewish studies program with some compulsory kind of Russian cultural courses that are required by the university. There's a large emphasis on learning Hebrew, both ancient and modern, and also on Russian Jewish history, amongst a range of subjects. Our rabbis in Moscow teach pastoral and life cycle courses in addition to the academic studies at the university. And from time to time, some visiting lecturers visit Moscow, including Professor Kozman from Abraham Geiger College, and work with the students there. All the BA students are expected to get involved in synagogue life in Moscow, as well as making visits to our regional communities across the FSU. Of course, things have been very complicated in the last 12 months, but in the future, if any of you are interested to help by visiting and perhaps mentoring the students on the BA program, additionally to what we offer now, please do get in touch, especially if you're a Russian speaker, as that would be a welcome addition to what we can currently offer. Our students are a very talented bunch. They seem to be a very talented group of young people. And I hope that we can come through this difficult period with the pandemic and with the financial crisis as well, and continue to support what seems to be a wonderful pipeline of students who will be our next generation of leaders, of rabbis, cantors, educators throughout the Russian-speaking world. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you. Now, the next rabbinic school in Europe is the latest addition to the already absolutely amazing institutions. We've heard so much about these amazing places where people can become rabbis. Rabbi Pauline Beb from Paris.
Yes, hello everyone. So I knew I would be the last one to talk, so probably you would be bored to hear the content of the studies and what we do in Paris. So I decided to tackle the subject differently around three points. The first, how the school was created, and then some of the specificities, and then opening on working together, a subject that has been talked about by Rabbi Sergio earlier. So how was the school created? It's the youngest one, and so we are the least experienced, and I'm always happy to hear about what other people do and to learn from them. Actually, in history, maybe a fact that some of you don't know is that there was a school in France that was created by Rabbi André Zawi, Zichrono Livracha, and the school was called Institut International d'Études Hébraïques, and it was created actually in 1955. It closed in the 60s, but it trained about 10 people. 10 people that were rabbis that did a tremendous work on the continent, and also some educators. So he had people like Martin Buber teaching there, or Leo Beck. And the reason I want to mention his memory is that so the institute closed in the 60s because he left to make Aliyah, and you know probably that he helped creating with the World Union the first Reformed congregation, Harel. in Jerusalem. So it closed, but so when I did my studies at Leobec, I spent actually 2 years in Israel, and I was his last student in Jerusalem. So I feel a bit that he has given me the mission to train modestly, train maybe a few rabbis with the help of all of you. So the program was created first in collaboration with the Leobec College, and this collaboration is still going on. And I'm very thankful for Leobec to work with me. It's still going on because there are still 4 students that are currently enrolled at Leobec, and that are 2 of them will be ordained this year, and there are 2 others. So the reason the school was created is that we realized it was difficult, the same difficulty that Walter Malka was talking about, leaving the country for some years, especially when you already have a family. It's difficult even for 3 years to go to another country. The cost of living, and also cultural adaptation of the program. Because, and this is the reason why maybe we have more seminaries all over the world. I don't know if you know, but there is one that is going to be created in South Africa, for example. But what is expected from a rabbi is not the same from one country to the next. So it's not a question only of translation, which is very interesting, but we don't say the same things in our sermons. And there are local specificities and cultural differences. I will take one, for example, in France, everyone takes a year of philosophy to prepare their baccalaureate, which is different in other countries. And so, again, the expectations are different. So the collaboration with Leobec is still going on, as I said, not only for the past students, but for also current students, and I'm very open to collaborating with all of the other seminaries. What are the specificities? Maybe the first one, it's because of the French law, we can't become a university, so we have to make an agreement with French universities. So the students are following their academic degree at a university. Another specificity, but I think it's some of the other seminaries and colleges are doing the same, is that we have teachers from Orthodox, Conservative, and Reform movements. Because we are so tiny, and the first class is 6 students that started last year with the Mechina. It's also a 6-year program. There is a Mechina year followed by 5 years. All the students are together, whatever their level, so which means that they can help each other if they know more. And some of the students are actually also teaching. It gives an atmosphere that is a little bit different. We've managed to stay the half presential, half online, even now, so which also helps. And then we have teachers from all over the world. French teachers are teaching in presential, and we have teachers from London, from Jerusalem, from Los Angeles, and from New York, and of course they are teaching online currently. Also, so the 3rd year is also in Jerusalem, in Israel. And what we planned is to do the 4th year in another seminary of the world that they have to choose, of their choice. So we are going to try to also pursue that. Yeah, that's I think the main specificities. And my final point is working together. When I started making the program, I realized that rabbinical colleges all over the world were facing new challenges, and in particular financial challenges, because also of the pandemic, and many of the classes were online. So I talked with Rabbi Sergio to discuss 7 proposals, and Nathan knows about them, of course, which started a conversation with all the different leaders of the seminary. So I will share them with you, and maybe it can be the start for a discussion if we have still 15 minutes for that. So the first proposal was to share online classes between the different seminaries. Of course, there is the problem of the time difference, but we can make it happen. The second was to share pedagogical and curriculum advice and best practices in different seminaries. The third was to send students for a year or a term in another seminary of their choice, what we hope to do. The fourth was to organize worldwide virtual meetings of all the students once or twice a year. The fifth one was to share virtual library resources. The sixth one was to have a common website or platform for recruitment purposes and communication. And the seventh was to raise funds all together as a movement, as a worldwide movement for students' studies and bursaries. So these are proposals, and I'm glad that we still have some time to exchange.
Thank you, Pauline. That was very interesting, and I also like the way that you also ask some of the crucial questions. You know, having 5 seminaries in Europe now, having seminaries which are coming out in other places in the world. I had a question from WhatsApp. Someone who watched us on YouTube who asked. He's interested to know if, with a squeeze on charitable giving, whether 5 European seminaries is financially viable. So that's, of course, the question, you know, where do you find the money to fund it? And the other question, I'll just put it there, and maybe you can have a conversation about the 7 points, because this will be also interesting for you to bring it back to the group when you go back and work with them. So the other question was, if the Dean's Principals had any objectives to work with youth movements in your different countries. So this is, you know, I'm just throwing into the arena. We are all rabbis. For all of us, you know, rabbinic training is essential because we all went through this, and it's also very important that we train rabbis who are flexible enough, you know, to face all the new challenges. So who wants to start? Let's open the conversation. We have about 15, 20 minutes. Walter, please.
Well, I can relate to the question of whether the amount of rabbinical schools is a burden on the fundraising side, yeah, or whether we are actually cannibalizing funds that otherwise could benefit communities or other purposes. Well, in the case of the Abraham Geiger College, I can say that the rabbinical school is a national school, is a state school, and that all the salaries are met by the national or by the regional government, and these positions are tenured positions. And so when I look at 2008 with the financial crisis, or now 2020 with the corona crisis, this did not affect us at all, because neither was our budget lowered, nor did we face any other financial problems. There were technical problems about the training, long distance, and so on. But I'm happy to say that in that sense, our school does not actually eat into this cake of potential givers. We have some fundraising in America, but in Europe, we're actually not featuring in the fundraising in the pond.
Thank you, Walter. Yeah, it's true. A German situation allows you to have Institute of Higher Studies, which is state funded, which makes a huge difference, of course, for this question. You're very quiet, or rabbis. I'm very surprised.
I'm happy to. I mean, I can't.
Yeah.
I can only say that the progressive movements, the reform and the liberal movement in the UK have, for more than nearly 65 years, been financially committed to ensuring the training of rabbis in the UK. We don't have the option that Geiger does to be funded by the UK taxpayer. That's not an available option here in the UK, and I imagine every country has a different mix of how it's able to fund studies depending on the higher education sector within that country. So effectively, well in excess of something in excess of 95% of rabbis working in the UK are graduates of Leerbeck College. So it's clearly really important that we have a seminary here in the UK. Are there things that we can do to share out expense? Some of the questions that Pauline was asking are certainly aimed precisely at that. Are there ways in which we can cooperate better that would be of benefit to our students, to their training, to our communities, and also to that financial bottom line? Those are conversations we're engaged in which certainly at Leerbeck we're very happy to have those conversations. Some of them sound really easy, but they're not, much as I'd like them to be. Can we share electronic resources? Not as much as I'd like. That every library will tell you that they have deals with the publishers that are unique. You can't just say because we have access to journals, you can have access to journals as well. It transgresses all sorts of copyright issues, whatever. So there are things that we could figure out. They'll be more complicated. And those are spaces where the World Union ought to help, I hope, would be able to step in and help us. In other words, if it's the World Union subscribing to electronic journals, then none of our libraries need to worry about it. We would all be able to share out those resources, but those are things we need to look at. So those are our real questions. As for working with youth movements, Leerbeck doesn't have some sort of formal relationship with our youth movements, but I'm pleased to say that we regularly, do what we can to support RSY NEDSA and LJY NEDSA in this country through our students, through our faculty, and we see them as an absolute, crucial importance to the future of progressive Judaism in the UK, and as a potential source of trainee rabbis, and lots of our UK rabbis and student rabbis have been through our youth movement. So we do what we can to work with our national bodies and with the youth movements directly.
Okay, thank you. So about the 7 propositions that Pauline made, I know that you have a working party with these 5 schools, and it's an ongoing conversation. But do you have any thought about it? Maybe something that you could channel back to Pauline and the other principals / deans of rabbinic schools? I mean, partnership is probably the. I mean, we've heard Sergio, what Sergio said earlier about partnering between the communities and institutions, probably the way forward. Yeah, Walter, yes.
I think Deborah Kahn-Harris has already pointed to that. It is very important that rabbinical students get to know each other during their studies. Now, we have had in the past a number of goes at this issue. It proves not so easy because the programs are at a different pace, or in a different, they are not worked out in a way that it is easy to, for example, spend time at another institution and then get back into the home institution because, and I must say that the Bologna process hasn't made that easier. So I think we remain committed to find ways of encounter, and as Dr. Khan Harris said, there is now with the internet a much better framework perhaps to think about this rather than personal encounter, which is costly and provides all kinds of other issues. So I hope that we will find ways to do that. With the other questions like exchanging teaching and so on, yes, the devil lies in the detail, and I can also say as much as the library problem is a problem, so is the question of accredited teaching, accredited courses, and the university. You know, you cannot just listen into any course if that is not accredited with that university program. Then you it doesn't count towards your degree points and so on and so on. I mean, it's not to say that there are not ways of doing this, but it, you know, I personally, for example, couldn't ask faculty members to do additional courses or have external people listen to their university courses, because that's totally up to them as professors of that university what they allow and what they do not allow, or whether they use extra time to serve other groups of students. But I would say what we should delight in is that there is now this ever-growing resource of learning and scholarship, and that we should be able to find ways within the European Union of Progressive Judaism to make use of that.
Okay, thank you.
I would just echo what Dr. Abelka has just said. Higher education is a heavily regulated industry. In every country, it will be slightly different, is exactly how that works. But in order to maintain degree courses, etc., it's not always as straightforward as I, or I'm sure any of us on SCORE would like, to simply exchange course credits, etc., etc. But where we can, we should. And there are things that we all do that aren't part of the validated or accredited process, where we can make other sorts of arrangements between us. And there are other sorts of spaces where we can work together, and also not just within Europe, but also with our North American and Israeli counterparts as well. Liebet College has been working for the past couple of years. We should have started this year, but for obvious reasons are not, developing an Israel study program for our students with the Reconstructionist Rabbinical Training Seminary in the States. So because we have very similar needs and very similar budgets and etc. So there are all sorts of spaces, and thankfully Rabbi Alfred has started convening this group of seminary heads and deans and things to get together and start thinking about where those spaces are and how we can support each other. But certainly in terms of really basic stuff like what is our curriculum, how do we build it, what do we look like, we're very happy to share that. I mean, we've shared all of that, for example, with Rabbi Beb, and as she said, we've got 4 French students currently on our program. We really look forward to some of her current students coming to us, we hope, as part of their training at some point in the future, and we think that sort of thing's really important, and I think developing close relationships with each other and knowing that we're here to support each other. Menno's not on the phone at the moment, calls are at the moment, but he mentioned that he's providing that Albert Ringer, who was here, I don't know if he still is providing a placement for one of our students this year. There are spaces like that where we can be working together as well. Oh, there you are, Albert.
Thank you, Deborah.
Peter is doing well. Thank you. It's great to have him.
Sylvia.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, it was lovely to hear about all of this. I just wanted to add one thing really, which is that a lot of the people who are on the current era studied together or knew each other from Bendorfs and things like that. And one of the things I think that we need to be much more proactive to do now, given that there are now 5 schools, going to be 6 schools if South Africa has still a contact, is that actually we need to find the spaces that don't have to be courses, they don't have to be validated, they don't have to go anywhere, but where the students actually meet each other. Because my generation, I was very lucky. I just had to come to London, which was, a bittersweet experience. But my generation, we met each other in the Leobeck College. The next generation, unless we're careful, won't meet each other except on formal things, and that's really not how networks are built up. Communities are built up by social interaction, by sharing. The coffee breaks are always more important than the lectures at any conference, and that maybe that's something that the ERA can do, is to have they're not collegiate things, but actually kind of quasi-social or or extramural events where the students are actually actively invited and actively encouraged to come and to meet each other.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. Thank you, Sylvia. Yes, Robert. Yes, Robert.
If you can accept a question from North America or comment. I wonder if the area of collaboration is less formal courses, but more individual seminars or guest lectures or other kinds of topical meetings where speakers or a panel are meeting and there is some discussion time, not just listening to a lecture, where the question is not getting a degree credit, but is hearing different perspectives on any of the many topics in Judaism. And that could bring, and that allows for bridging with the right time zones to bridge many countries and bring people together.
In our previous session, I was suggesting, and it has been just started talking about these things, that I really feel that there should be some sort of world union course for all rabbinic students in the world, in the progressive Jewish world, together to learn about our communities across the globe. And that could be the beginning of that kind of space. You're right, Sylvia, there needs to be face-to-face time, water cooler moments, whatever your local cultural equivalent is. Obviously, we're all hamstrung at this precise moment. Please God, this pandemic will finish and we'll be able to think beyond the virtual world soon. And maybe the next time there's an Era Kallah, we need to really think about how there is a space for students to attend, how we get funding for students to attend, where we want to share with them what's going on in this group and where they can have their own meetings. There are spaces for things like that. But we do need to, as you said, Robert, we also need to be creative, so that there are the opportunities outside of the very formal collaborations. The issue, I think, really is the informal stuff isn't really the expensive stuff, and why Dr. Molke has a wonderful model in Germany for it all being funded. The rest of us have to rely on other sorts of donations, and so finding the funding to do these less formal things can sometimes be a challenge, and finding the space for it in our programs can sometimes be a challenge. We don't all have the same term times, and we are in different time zones, but I think where there's a will, there's a way, and we'll, Rabbi Alfred's bringing us together, and I think we'll begin to bridge those gaps over the coming years.
Brilliant, thank you. Guys, it's 7:15, 8, 9, depending where you are, or 3 or 4. Thank you for your presence today. And so tomorrow we start. I can show you the program. Because where is it? So there's a Shacharit service. These are UK time. A Shacharit service at 8. Then there's an online coffee with Era. So I won't be joining you before 9:30 UK time because I have a meeting before. Then we have a workshop with Rabbi Jackie Tabik, building issues. So we will, so that's not the latest version. Sorry about that. We will discuss, how do we address the transgender transgender people coming to our Batedin. And there's also another question, I don't remember. There's a workshop led by Nicole Maor, the director of Iraq in Jerusalem, about Alia issues, lunch break. And then Katharina von Schnurbein from the European Commission will talk about combating anti-Semitism in Europe. And then you're all invited, of course, to the AGM at 3:20 again, GMT time, where we will have reports, elections, resolutions, etc. So we will leave now the link open for maybe an hour, half an hour, and Jesse will open breakout rooms, and then we can go and talk to each other. And if you have to go now, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I think it was a brilliant two first sessions, and I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you, René.